Welcome to the Assembly Committee on Education, the most educated committee in the Nevada State Legislature. Will the Secretary please call the roll?
Assembly members De Silva, Dahlia, DeLong, Flanagan, Hanson, Hardy, Hunt, Koenig, LaRue Hatch, Mosca, Ornt-Licker, and Chair Torres Fawcett.
Please mark Assembly members Hanson and Mosca absent, excused, and present when they arrive. Welcome to the audience here in Carson City and those joining us by video conference in Las Vegas. For our followers on YouTube, thank you for joining us again. Please don't forget to subscribe. Just a couple housekeeping items before we get started. Please remember to silence your electronic devices, including your laptops. If you wish to testify, please sign in at the table by the door and provide a business card to the committee's assistant. For those joining online, please be sure to mute your microphone when you're not speaking to minimize any background noise. When testifying, please turn on the microphone and clearly state your name, spell your name, and state your affiliation, if any, for the record. Then turn the microphone off each time you are done speaking. Handouts should have already been provided to my committee staff. We expect courtesy and respect in our interactions during the meeting, even if we do not agree with another person's position. Committee members will be using their laptops to view handouts and other documents. Please do not view this as a sign of disrespect or inattention. Public comment will be taken at the end of the meeting. Each person will be limited to 2 minutes. In addition, the public may submit written testimony to the committee up to 24 hours after the hearing. Just as a reminder to members of the public, we will never tolerate that anyone is disrespecting or talking about and making any personal attacks towards any members of this committee or of the Nevada State Legislature as a whole, regardless of political party. It's just not acceptable. So if you lean that way, you will be shut down. Additionally, public comment is only intended to hear anything that would be within the power of the Education Committee. So to be very clear, if you're talking about First Amendment right and it doesn't pertain to this Committee on Education, that would not be applicable. At this time, we will go ahead and open the hearing on AB 394, which authorizes the Board of Regents of the University of Nevada to require certain institutions to adopt emergency response plans related to opioid overdose. When you're ready, please begin.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Tracy Brown May, and I'm proud to represent Nevada Assembly District 42 in the heart of Clark County. First, we want to thank you for the opportunity to present this measure for your consideration today. We are very excited to be here, as this is the culmination of years worth of work to get us here. Today I'm joined by Ms. Madeline Larson, who will help to present this measure. Originally, this was introduced, I believe, during the last session of the Nevada Legislature, and then discussed at great length during the Interim Committee on Health and Human Services. Ms. Larson presented her idea to build on the good work being done across Nevada to decrease overdose in our community while providing a framework for emergency preparedness and harm reduction methodologies. She has accomplished much over the interim, and I am pleased to introduce her here today. Members, you have a handout on your desks that we will be referring to, which is part of our harm reduction methodology. I want to be really clear that this comes to us from the Department of Health and Human Services. And as chair of our Health and Human Services Committee, I would like to call out that they are probably the healthiest committee, while you are the most educated. Yes. But this is a really important tool for harm reduction methodology and overdose response. So this is really what we're talking about, having access to an antagonist. So at this point, I'm going to turn our presentation over to Ms. Larson to talk about her story.
Thank you so much, Assemblymember Brown May and the Committee on Education. I'm so grateful to be here today. This has been a culmination of work over this past year just in the interim, and I'm so thankful. So, by way of background, this issue originated within my 7 consecutive years as a University of Nevada, Reno student from 2017 to 2024. During those years as a student, I noticed a lot of drug use. Now, really, it wasn't unusual because college and young adult years are a time for experimentation. But what was unusual to me was the inability to find harm reduction tool access across the university's campus to empower students to use drugs safely, because they're doing it. Over the past several years, overdose deaths have skyrocketed due to fentanyl being in just about any illicit substance you can find. And with that, harm reduction tools such as naloxone, also known as Narcan, an opioid overdose reversal medication, have been becoming widely accepted and available for the layperson's use. With the widespread availability and acceptability of naloxone, I thought it was truly a no-brainer for the Nevada system of higher education across the board to supply this to their students. At the crux of this issue, I do not want one of my fellow college students, colleagues, faculty, staff, or their loved ones to die because they or their friends didn't know where to get naloxone or how to use it. This type of scenario is simply unacceptable for the tools that we have access to now that are sitting right in front of you to prevent death from adulterated substances. Now we will summarize the bill. Section 1, subsection 1 states the Board of Regents may require each institution within the system to, in consultation with the Division of Public and Behavioral Health of the Department of Health and Human Services, adopt an emergency response plan to address opioid-related drug overdoses and include what the response plan must include. First, plans for providing education on opioid-related overdoses. 2, measures to respond compassionately to opioid-related drug overdoses. This includes emphasizing rescue breathing techniques and utilizing the naloxone or other opioid antagonists. We propose a conceptual amendment to change the language in this section from 4 milligrams to the lowest effective dose to restore breathing, as this is recommended by interested parties. Additionally, we propose an additional amendment to add a section on student protections prohibiting university disciplinary actions for students obtaining that opioid antagonist. The plan must also include procedures for the distribution and administration of opioid antagonists and ensuring ease of access to those opioid antagonists. Subsection 2 identifies that each institution within the system may tailor the emergency response plan to meet the needs and capacity of the institution implementing that plan. Subsection 3 identifies that an emergency response plan described in subsection 1 may not require a person to complete any training in order to obtain or administer an opioid antagonist. Subsection 4 notes the Board of Regents may adopt a model emergency response plan to assist institutions in developing their individual emergency response plans. This is the entirety of this bill. Thank you so much for the opportunity to present to you all today. We are happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, and congratulations on your first bill presentation. You did a phenomenal job. We really do appreciate it. At this time, I'll go ahead and open it to any questions. Assemblymember Hardy.
Thank you, Chair. And yes, absolutely, great presentation. You did a great job. I'm actually kind of surprised to hear, as you said, whether some of us want to think so or not, that drug use on campuses happens. So I was kind of surprised that do campuses have this kit or any kind of response plan now? Is it hit and miss, and that's why we're wanting to do the legislation? Because I assume unfortunately they probably have overdoses happen, and so what do they do now?
Great question, Assemblymember Hardy. Madeline Larson for the record. So when I first brought this up, University of Nevada, Reno was working on plans. And then, so they actually have an emergency response plan and policies and procedures for that, and 3 distribution sites across the campus at the Student Health Center, the Knowledge Center, and at the School of Public Health. So University of Nevada, Reno was really a pioneer in this work, and they've been a great partner in this. And the other 8 or the other 7 institutions also need to have a similar plan like that because it's happening across the board across our state. But yes, it has been happening, and we just need to get it across the board. Thank you for that question.
Tracy Brown May for the record. Just to follow up on Ms. Larson's comments, you'll see that we have with us today the Chancellor with the Nevada System of Higher Education, who has worked with us throughout this entire process. Each one of our institutions had a plan that was in the works for them currently. This helps us make sure that we standardize the expectations of a plan across the state.
Thank you, Assemblymember Mosca.
Thank you so much. I wanted to congratulate you as well on a great bill presentation and that you've been working on it so long. So thank you so much. That was similar to my colleague asked a question I was going to ask. So I'm grateful to hear that it's to standardize it. And so my other question was just, are we looking at best practices from other states and what are other universities doing and colleges?
Thank you so much for that question, Assembly Member Mosca. Madeline Larson, for the record, yes, other institutions in other states are doing this. California has got, I think it's their University of California system that has a statewide plan for this. State of Washington also has it. Colorado. In terms of what they're doing, they're also including the fentanyl test strips in their plan, which isn't specifically outlined in this, but other states are doing this as well.
Tracy Brown May, for the record, if I can follow up, Chair. One of the other things to consider, and thank you so much for that question. I had an opportunity to function as an opioid fellow over the interim and spent a lot of time working on harm reduction methodologies in the current opioid crisis that Nevada faces. Unfortunately, Nevada is in a unique position. We are one of 4 states that our overdose instances are still climbing. And many times what we're seeing is that overdose is happening in a home. And so if we can educate our students that are on campus and give them access to what we've given you today as part of DHHS, we destigmatize the need to have an overdose antagonist so that we are ready to respond wherever we are. And so it helps us to build our system to combat our unique issue here in Nevada.
Assemblymember Flanagan.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the presentation. I know we are aware that I've had a couple people that I'm aware of in my community who have had opioid fentanyl deaths, basically, which are very unfortunate. So this is sort of a devil's advocate question, because sometimes people will say, if you give people a solution, does it open the door for kids to try something because, oh, here's a safety net. So now, are there any concerns, or is there any evidence or conversation centered around that we should just be mindful of or consider?
Tracy Brown May, for the record, thank you very much for that question. I enjoy playing the devil's advocate, right? How do we talk it all the way through? I think that right now we have people that are experimenting and then are in crisis who are addicted. And because of the way fentanyl is working its way through our community, we are experiencing more overdose deaths than I think anyone could have anticipated, right? Will kids try it if they feel like I would hope no child would do that. Unfortunately, the reality is fentanyl is in more things than we can identify. And so we are seeing more instances of accidental overdose than we are intentional experimentation. I'm happy to go back to DHHS and track data to find out what they know, because we do have so many wonderful folks that are working to track the instances. But I can tell you, in doing the research for this bill, the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department receives an allocation of overdose antagonists, like you have here, for the course of the year. And when I had phoned in 6 months into the year, they had already utilized every dose that they had used the year prior. So I think that we are in such an emergency situation right now. The more people who understand how to stop an overdose immediately, I think the healthier our system can be.
Members, do I have any additional questions? I do not see any additional questions at this time. Thank you so much for the presentation and great job. At this time, we'll go ahead and invite anyone wishing to testify in support of AB 394. Please begin when you're ready. As a reminder, we'll start here in Carson City, but please make sure you state and spell your name for the record. And we will start with 20 minutes in support, 20 minutes opposition, 20 minutes neutral, but begin when you're ready.
Good afternoon, Chair Torres Fawcett and members of the committee. For the record, I'm Patty Charlton, Interim Chancellor of the Nevada System of Higher Education. I want to first start by thanking Assemblymember Brown May and Ms. Larson for the work and their collaboration over the interim to bring this bill before you today, and also for their engagement with the Nevada System of Higher Education across the board with students, with our University Police Services departments, and with administrators as well. And so to even respond to some of the as part of our support for this bill is that one of the things that this bill does is provide that consistency in our planning efforts throughout our institutions, be it the Wellness Center, be it the University Police Services. We do have 8 institutions that are all across Nevada, and we also recognize that we have commuter campuses as well. And so to be able to have the tools available for this issue is very important. So again, we just stand in support of this bill today. Thank you so much.
Amy Payson, AMY-PASON, and I'm representing the Nevada Faculty Alliance. I'm a faculty member at the University of Nevada, Reno, so I do know of the training programs that we already have in place and that we are working on in terms of addressing this issue. And faculty are always looking out for our students and always looking out at how we can have the tools that we need to address whatever new issue arises for our students. So we stand in support of this bill. Thank you.
Hi, Chair and members of this committee. My name is Annie Vong, ANNIEVONG, for Cartwright NV Government Affairs. We're testifying on behalf of Nevada Public Health Association and National Alliance on Mental Illness. I personally carry naloxone wherever I go, and I think it's everybody's hope that I never use it. And so for those of us that do, it will go a long way in saving lives. And so this bill is fantastic for mental and public health. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. Sarah Adler, SARAH-ADLER, with Silver State Government Relations, and today proud to represent the Nevada Opioid Treatment Association. And so NOTA is in strong support of this bill. It's very exciting that across our institutions, as the interim chancellor said, there will be a consistency in planning efforts, and that will allow these opioid treatment programs, which is the NOTA Association, to have a place to reach into universities and talk about the risk of opioid addiction and the way that it can be treated here in our communities. So we appreciate Assemblywoman Brown May's effort and in support of this bill. Thank you.
Good afternoon, committee members. Madam Chair, thank you for giving me an opportunity for my voice to be heard. My name is Leticia Delgado, that's LETICIADELGADO, and over the summer I became an overdose response trainer when I've had the pleasure to train of several agencies and locations across the valley, most pertinent the UNLV Medical Campus and the Student Union at UNLV. What I've learned is that college students are really receptive and really excited about conversations surrounding substance abuse, which I think is amazing just because it used to be something that people were really ashamed to talk about. So it is for that reason that I politely urge the committee to support this bill. Thank you.
Good afternoon, chairs and members of the Assembly Committee on Education. My name is Kennedy Taylor, KENNEDYTAYLOR for the record, and I serve as the Director of Government Affairs for the Associated Students of the University of Nevada, representing the undergraduate student body at UNR. Today I'm here to express our strong support for AB 394, expanding overdose education and naloxone. Sorry, my pronunciation is terrible. Accessibility. On every undergraduate student's online web campus account, there is a training that typically takes 1 hour for completion. After students have completed said course on the University of Nevada, Reno campus successfully, they are then able to receive 2 doses of free naloxone at 3 different on-campus locations. Should undergraduate students decide to go to the pharmacy uninsured, they are expected to pay the $48 charge associated, often unaffordable to the majority of undergraduate students. AB 394 strengthens the presence of overdose education and reduction on NC campuses statewide to protect the Nevadans of the future. In previous events ASUN and NRAP have hosted on campus, the engagement on campus with naloxone training has decreased as undergraduate students become increasingly less educated on the matter. We as an association are expected to, We as an association are excited to see the impacts AB 394 has, if passed, on NC campuses and the strategies and tactics brought forward to receiving this education. Thank you, and as always, go Pack.
Go Pack.
On that beautiful note, Leonardo Benavides with UNLV. here today strongly in support of AB 394. As you heard earlier from one of our students, we are doing some of these education efforts on campus. We also offer naloxone on campus as well at the student pharmacy. We want to thank Assemblymember Brown May and Maddie Larson for working with us throughout the session on this bill, so glad to support it.
Good afternoon. For the record, my name is Alyssa Planas, ALYSSA-PLANAS. While I am a state of Nevada employee, I'm not here representing my agency or department. I'm speaking on my own time as a Nevadan and a graduate of UNR's Master of Public Health program to express my strong support for the proposed bill that would require all institutions to provide low-barrier access to naloxone. I speak not only as a supporter of this bill, but as someone who has been directly impacted by the opioid crisis. I lost an ex-boyfriend to an overdose. He was living in transitional housing right across from the college campus, a campus that would be directly affected by this bill. I've had to personally take a class to learn how to use naloxone and even obtain it for myself. It wasn't easy and it shouldn't be that difficult. I will never forget the anxiety of preparing for the worst when he told me he relapsed, knowing I might have to administer naloxone to save his life. Tragically, I never had the chance. His death is a daily reminder of why access to naloxone is so important. The opioid crisis disproportionately affects college-age individuals, including students, faculty, and staff, the very people who would benefit from easy access to naloxone. If this bill passes, we can give them the confidence to act when it matters most, without hesitation or fear of stigma. Just as we make condoms widely available on campuses to prevent harm or even defibrillators to act and aid in emergency, naloxone should just be as accessible to prevent death. Naloxone is a life-saving tool, just as condoms are a tool for prevention, and both require a culture of awareness and accessibility. This bill ensures that naloxone is available in places like dorms, libraries, and health centers, removing barriers and giving people the chance to save a life without fear of judgment. No one should ever have to worry about how to access naloxone in an emergency, and this bill is about creating a campus culture where everyone is equipped to protect each other. I urge you to support this bill because it's not just about providing a drug, it's about saving lives, fostering education, and giving everyone the opportunity to survive. Let's make sure that no one else has to lose someone they love in this way. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Hi there. My name is Stephen Markley, and I'm a survivor of the opioid epidemic and a parent. I was a heroin and fentanyl user for 6 years while living on the streets. If it hadn't been for people providing us with naloxone and training, I wouldn't be standing here before you because I never would have had the time to gather the strength needed to turn my life around. I experienced 3 overdoses that should have been fatal, and every time I was revived, it was by people I lived and used with who were supplied naloxone and trained on how to use it. Now, as a parent of a little girl, I know it is my responsibility to educate my child on the risks and realities of drug use, and it's a responsibility I take very seriously. I absolutely hope my child will heed my advice and make responsible choices, but the reality is that our children don't always listen to the advice of their parents. That's where having a safety measure like this bill comes into play, because part of educating our children about the risks and realities of drug use includes teaching them how to handle an emergency and providing them the tools to do so. Unfortunately, the times we're living in mean that making one simple mistake can cost them their lives. Drugs that were once very low on the danger spectrum can now become instantly fatal due to a lack of knowledge and the ingredients they contain. Let's not forget the pressure that can be felt from the desire to fit in with your peers. We had the luxury of growing up that the risk of these mistakes being fatal were relatively low, but not young adults today. We have to accept the reality of the situation we are in right now. This bill will save thousands of young lives. Our most valuable resource is not the money it will cost, but the youth that it will protect. We live in polarized times, and there will be plenty of opportunities to demonstrate political allegiances, but let's look past differences to unite over the common bond we share, the love for our children and the concern for their well-being. Thank you very much for taking the time to listen to this bill.
Thank you, Chair. Excuse me. Thank you, Chair Bradley Mayer. Representing Southern Nevada Health District today, we are strongly in support of this bill. It represents a vital step forward, allowing NSHE to compassionately and effectively respond to these emergencies. In 2024, there were 531 opioid-related deaths in Clark County, which represents a 126% increase since 2019. Thanks for your time.
Good afternoon. My name is Haley Etchart, Haleyetchart for the record. I am a staff member at UNR, but I come to present my own opinions and my beliefs on why I believe this bill supports and protects the lives of students, but also Nevada's communities at large. As someone who works at UNR, I want to share why I believe this bill will help make our students safer, and as someone who works in public health, I am much more comfortable citing research than expressing my own opinions. To be clear, there's a vast array of research that describes the immense value of Narcan training, response training, and comprehensive access to Narcan within our communities. However, I feel it's the best use of my time today to describe my own experiences in college that convinced me this bill is worthwhile. As a freshman entering college, I would have thought it extremely unlikely that I'd find myself needing to respond to someone in an overdose. However unlikely that experience was a decade ago, this committee now knows that opioid overdose is becoming increasingly prevalent in everyday lives. However unlikely it was that I'd have to save someone in my first year of college, that's exactly what happened. At one of the very first parties I went to in college, I went looking for the bathroom, but instead found my friend's boyfriend unconscious instead. None of us knew he was on pills, and frankly, it didn't even cross my mind. He was just unresponsive against the door, and I couldn't open it far enough to see him. But in retrospect, I heard him struggling to breathe. I ran and grabbed my friend to help me open the door. It felt like an eternity, it was probably 4 minutes. It took 3 of us to be able to open it. We found him limp and gray inside. With what I can only describe as luck, we were able to give him rescue air, and my friend wrapped him in cold towels, and he pulled out of it. But I realized that this situation, he had luck, timing, and fate all on his side. Unfortunately, data shows us that people who are under the age of 25 are experiencing over 100% more opioid fatalities than they did a decade ago. I do not think someone so young should have to be incredibly lucky to survive. Narcan is important, and it is always important to make it available publicly. Whether or not training is currently available, walking by a first aid kit with a defibrillator is no different than walking by a box of Narcan. To Assemblyperson Flanagan's point, it doesn't make us more likely to have a heart attack.
I'm sorry, I do have to go on to the next speaker, but please, I know you do have written remarks. Please make sure you get them to my committee staff. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Richard Stave, S-T-A-V-E, and I'm a man of lived experience with the opioid epidemic. I was raised by a very traditional family with loving parents who valued hard work and education. I studied nutritional science and had dreams of helping people live a happier and healthier life. I was also very close-minded, along with my family, thinking addiction would never happen to me. After suffering a back injury from a snowboarding accident, my doctor prescribed me high doses of OxyContin. Being naive, yet a know-it-all college student, became very confusing very quickly. College exposed my vulnerability, my need to fit in, and my desires to explore, experiment, and try new things. After being cut off from the medication after 4 months, I was left feeling desperate and hopeless. The fear of judgment and stigmas led to a complicated relationship with addiction. On Memorial Day 2024, I experienced a near-fatal overdose and car accident. I unintentionally ingested fentanyl thinking it was something else. Thankfully, by the grace of God, the workers inside the McDonald's I crashed my vehicle into were trained and equipped to properly identify my life-threatening situation and swiftly respond with administering Narcan, thankfully saving my life. I never thought it would happen to me until it did. This is what scares me most about the unexpected of today. Unintentional exposure to fentanyl is at an all-time high, and this bill would certainly aid in saving the precious lives at stake. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. At this time, we'll go ahead and go to Las Vegas. Please begin when you're ready.
Doug Unger, DOUG, UNGER, President, UNLV Chapter, Nevada Faculty Alliance. We support the emergency response plans to address opioid-related drug overdoses in AB 394. We hope to work with the Board of Regents and the Chancellor to incorporate this training and the implementation within the larger Campus Safety and Security Committee and institute it system-wide. We support AB 394.
Thank you. At this time, we will go ahead and go to the phone lines. AVH, is there anyone on the line wishing to testify in support of AB 394?
Thank you, Chair. If you would like to testify in support of Assembly Bill 394, please press star 9 now to join the queue.
Hello. Um, Hello. My name is Aaron Oliva, spelled Aaronoliva. I'm calling in to strongly support AB 394 and urge the committee to vote yes on this bill. I personally attended these Narcan workshops and learned about the terrible effects of opioid overdoses' impact on our community. Naloxone is a life-saving medicine and one of the only ways to reverse the effects of an often fatal drug overdose. It is an easy-to-use medication and easy to educate others on how to use it and should be accessible for all. Opioid and fentanyl deaths continue to rise and are an epidemic in this country, and access to this medication as well as proper education is a great way to combat this problem in our state. Thank you for your time.
Hello. Greetings, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Michelle Berry, Michellelleberry. I am the Associate Director with CASAT at the School of Public Health at the University of Nevada, Reno. On behalf of UNR, the School of Public Health, and CASAT, I am pleased to speak in support of Assembly Bill AB 394. CASAT is the center within the School of Public Health and has served as one of two primary distributors of harm reduction supplies for the state of Nevada since 2017. We have worked with over 165 community organizations and 44 law enforcement, fire, EMS departments to dispense nearly 190,000 units of naloxone, 245,000 fentanyl test strips, and 110,000 xylazine test strips. We have also provided more than 200 live and on-demand trainings to ensure members of the community are prepared to intervene in the case of an overdose. Data shows college-age individuals are at high risk for experiencing an overdose, and this academic year we worked with UNR leadership and the Student Health Clinic to make naloxone kits and online training available for students, faculty, and staff. Since August, 2,500 individuals have taken the training and 150 kits have been picked up. We are grateful to the bill sponsor for bringing additional attention to this issue and the committee's consideration of this bill.
Thank you. And just so that members of the public know, we have about 3 minutes left before I switch to opposition testimony. So go ahead to next caller if we have one.
Hello.
Please proceed.
Hello, my name is Kaylee Krentz of Washoe Education Association, and I am here to speak in solidarity with our educators and students in higher education regarding the use of opioid overdose emergency training. I may be a teacher now, but there once was a time where I was in healthcare. I actually have a Bachelor's of Health Management Administration where I saw this type of concern firsthand every day. We must recognize that this opioid crisis is not just a distant issue, but it's impacting our schools, our students, and our communities, not just specifically in higher education, but in all young adult education environments. And I'm going to share a quick story I experienced as a parent at a local high school in Reno with my son. My son contacted me one day in a panic, concerned because his friend was sick, and he asked if I could give her a ride home. When I pressed him further, it turned out she was overdosing in the high school bathroom after school. She had been lost all day, and they found her and brought her in to clean her up and make her feel better, but then she lost consciousness. I immediately contacted our school police and the school administrators to let them know what was going on within their school building and that the student was in harm. Luckily, the student was able to have their life saved after 2 Narcans, and this child was a sophomore at the time. The student is blessed that my son was there to have quick thinking to call his parents, but how many other students fear asking their parents for help in these types of situations, specifically in higher education, when they're out on their own trying to learn to become their own person? Quick, informed action in an overdose situation can mean the difference between life and death. This is such an important bill, and I urge you guys to take it seriously. Thank you so much for your time.
Can you please spell your last name, please?
One moment, Chair. Let me unmute this caller again.
Thank you.
Oh, yes, I apologize. My name is Kaylee Krentz, K-A-L-Y, last name K-R-E-N-T-Z.
Thank you.
Hello.
My name is Bailey Gonzalez. I am in support of this bill to empower the Nevada system of higher education to adopt emergency response plans addressing opioid-related overdoses. The legislation takes a proactive and essential stance addressing the growing opioid crisis, which continues to devastate individuals and families in our communities. It ensures that life-saving opioid antagonists such as naloxone are readily available on campuses, and it emphasizes the need for comprehensive education and training on overdose prevention and response. By preparing higher education students with tailored emergency plans, this bill prioritizes the health and safety of students, staff, and visitors, creating environments that are not only aware of the dangers of opioid use, but also equipped to respond effectively in critical moments. It sends the implementation of this bill would send a powerful message that the well-being of our community members is a priority and that no life is expendable. By addressing stigma and fostering an informed and prepared campus culture, this legislation not only saves lives, but also advances broader public health initiatives. Supporting this bill is a commitment to safeguarding our future generations and empowering institutions to be leaders in combating the opioid crisis with compassion and action. And my name is Bailey Gonzalez, BaileyGonzales. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for spelling your name. At this time, we will go ahead and close support because we have hit we're now just 2 minutes past 1:30 mark, just to kind of make up for all the tech things that we have to do. So I will go ahead and go to opposition. Is there anyone wishing to testify in opposition to AB 394? I do not see anyone here in Carson City, nor do I see anyone in Las Vegas. AVH, is there anyone on the line wishing to test in opposition to AB 394?
Thank you, Chair. If you would like to testify in opposition to Assembly Bill 394, please press star 9 to join the queue. Chair, there are no callers choosing to testify at this time.
Thank you. At this time, I'll go ahead and invite anyone wishing to testify neutral to AB 394. I do not see anyone here in Carson City, nor do I see anyone in Las Vegas. AVH, is there anyone on the line wishing to testify neutral to AB 394?
If you would like to testify in neutral for Assembly Bill 394, please press star 9 to join the queue. Chair, there are no callers choosing to testify at this time.
Thank you. At this time, we'll go ahead and allow for the bill sponsor to provide any closing remarks. Thank you.
Thank you. Tracy Brown May for the record. And Chair, members of the committee, we just really want to offer our deepest gratitude for you taking the time to hear this bill. As you've heard from lots of members of our community, the opioid crisis is ongoing, lives are at stake, and this is just one simple measure that we can do cooperatively to enhance education. So we appreciate you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And thank you for the presentation and for those of you that were coming to share your stories with us today. At this time, we will go ahead and close the hearing on AB 394, and we will open the hearing on AB 397. Assemblymember Watts, please begin when you're ready. And welcome to the most educated and hardest working committee in the Nevada State Legislature. I know you feel the same, so I just want to make it clear that we are welcoming you here today.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, members of the committee, for the record, I am Howard Watts. I represent Assembly District 15 in Clark County. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to present Assembly Bill 397 for your consideration today. I am joined by Arash Kafori with the Nevada Partnership for Homeless Youth, and we also have a co-presenter joining us down in Southern Nevada. I am going to provide a very brief overview of why we are bringing this forward today. Then I'm going to pass it off to my co-presenters, and then finally I will give you a very quick walkthrough of the bill. This really starts with Assembly Bill 461, which was introduced in 2019 by our late colleague, Assembly Member Tyrone Thompson, as the chair of the Education Committee. That bill passed the legislature unanimously and authorized the creation of a tuition waiver for homeless youth in our state. It also established the position of a liaison for homeless students in our system of higher education. However, as many of you know, we seem to face budgetary issues more often than not. The legislation as it was passed was discretionary. And unfortunately, since that time, we've been through quite a bit. And unfortunately, none of the institutions in our state have brought forward and enacted this tuition waiver. So the bill that we have before you is aimed at rectifying that. I do want to note some of the incredible work that has been going on. In around that same timeline, the system of higher education recognized the need to help provide additional educational support and opportunity for youth that had been involved in the foster care system, and created a wonderful tuition waiver program to benefit that community. A lot of the issues that unaccompanied or homeless youth face are very similar to that population, and unfortunately there's often quite a bit of crossover between those populations. Many youth that are foster involved have experienced homelessness at one point, and vice versa. So really we're looking to make sure that all of the young people in our state that have had to overcome such challenging circumstances are able to access higher education within our state. The other thing I want to mention, we brought a bill very similar to this last session. It did not make it all the way through the process. This bill is streamlined additionally from that policy last session. We are not addressing any of the existing statutory language related to the liaison position that exists in statute, and are really focused on making sure that we enable this waiver program to benefit our students. And finally, I want to acknowledge that there are many conversations. I know that for those of you who served on the interim Committee on Education, that there was conversation, and a bill I think is going to be forthcoming looking at trying to streamline tuition waivers. I believe there is another bill in the Senate that is also looking to do the same. And we have been in conversation and want to be part of that. To the extent that some of that moves through, we want to try and align some of the efforts that we have with that. But I think it's important that we lift up the importance of this. And again, I am personally committed to continuing to lead the charge on this effort and make sure that the vision that our late colleague shared becomes a reality. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Ghafouri.
Thank you, Assemblymember Watts. For the record, my name is Arash Ghafouri, A-R-A-S-H, last name G-H-A, F as in Frank, O-O-R-I, CEO of Nevada Partnership for Homeless Youth. And thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee, for having us here today. I just want to frame the importance of the issue of youth homelessness in our state. So youth homelessness in our state is a crisis. In 2024, there was just shy of 550 unaccompanied youth experiencing literal homelessness on a given night in Nevada. And when I want to stress that unaccompanied youth means a youth without a parent or guardian. And this was a 27% increase from the prior year. And in the 2022-23 school year, just shy of 1,000 students in the K through 12, in grades K through 12, were identified by school districts throughout Nevada as experiencing unaccompanied homelessness. So this is a very serious issue, and youth experiencing homelessness face significant challenges succeeding in school. In Nevada, youth experiencing homelessness in our K through 12 schools experience chronic absenteeism at almost twice the rate as their stably housed peers. And nationwide, students experiencing homelessness are 87% more likely to drop out of high school compared to the housed peers. And it is increasingly evident by statistics that post-secondary education is necessary to move out of poverty and homelessness, because the majority of well-paying jobs created since 2010 require some sort of education beyond high school. However, young people experiencing homelessness face significant barriers to higher education. They're often disconnected from their families, lacking both financial support and assistance to navigate the complex and confusing college admissions and financial aid process, and must figure out how to pay for their higher education while struggling to find or keep a roof over their head and meet their own survival needs. So, as Assemblymember Watts mentioned, and for brevity's sake, I won't go over it again, but in 2018, NC did create the Fostering Success Initiative, which waives tuition and fees for youth who've been in the foster care system. And in 2019, this great legislative body, just want to stress it again, passed AB 461 to allow and encourage NC to create a similar waiver for young people experiencing homelessness. And as Assemblymember Watts pointed out, young people experiencing homelessness and foster youth are a very overlapping population in our state. However, to this date, this waiver is not, to our knowledge, been extended to one young person experiencing homelessness. So AB 397 proposes extending this waiver to this incredibly vulnerable population, empowering more disadvantaged young Nevadans to attain stability and economic independence through education. Do you want me to walk through the bill, or will you walk through the bill? Okay, perfect. So I just want to stress really quick how this bill is going to impact us all. So vulnerable youth's access to higher education not only impacts their own futures, but our entire state. In 2018, UNLV, part of the NC system, did a study on youth homelessness and found that between 2016 and 2018, this is a 3-year period, Southern Nevada alone, its economy lost $75 to $100 million during that period due to homeless youth's lower average incomes, lower rates of participation in the workforce, and uncollected tax revenue. Most importantly, the same study found a major disparity in the rates of homeless youth participation in our own higher education system. Only 6 to 8% of college-age homeless youth identified in Southern Nevada participated in higher education, compared to over 50% of all youth, and even compared to roughly 40% of youth living in poverty. By passing AB 397, Nevada will join states like Oregon, Florida, California, Georgia, Maine, and Maryland in addressing these disparities for this really critically vulnerable population. At the same time, by having clear specific eligibility criteria that require Assemblymember Watts will get into that, but we have clarified the eligibility criteria, and having this waiver will empower young people experiencing homelessness to pursue higher education, which is a win-win for our state, not only providing those individual disadvantaged youth with a clear pathway to increase their long-term earnings potential, but also creating significant positive impacts for our state for years and years to come. Thank you. And now I'd like to turn it over to one of our youth advocates in Southern Nevada. Teresa will introduce herself, but I just want to quickly say that I'm proud and privileged to be working alongside with Teresa. Teresa is a young person with lived experience who would like to share why she believes that the passage of AB 397 is so critical for our great state. Thank you.
Hi. For the record, my name is Teresa Butler, Theresa, and then last name Butler. It is a true pleasure to be in the presence of the chair and members of the Education Committee today. My name is Teresa Butler, and for the record, while I am a state Nevada employee, I am not here representing my agency or department. As a Nevadan, a homeless youth advocate, and a UNLV Hope Scholar alum, and a former unaccompanied homeless youth, I am speaking on my own time in unwavering support of Assembly Bill 397. Assembly Bill 397 is a law that will give youth experiencing homelessness a tuition and fee waiver to pursue higher education. Today, again, I am advocating for youth experiencing homelessness to receive the same tuition and fee waiver foster youth received back in 2019. Today, I'll preference my testimony with a letter to my son. Dear Bo, I want to apologize in advance for being a stickler about education. When you're older, way older, I'll explain more. But know it saved my life and gave me the chance to rewrite my story and fight for a future where you will never have to fend for yours. And even with my deep love for learning, I want you to know this. You could become anything you dream of. You're already so smart and so capable. And no matter what path you choose, education will only empower you further. It is a key, not just to knowledge, but to freedom, security, and to choices. I cannot wait to see who you become. And until then and forever after, no matter where life takes you, know you will always have a safe place with me. Love, Mom. Before experiencing homelessness, I was on a clear path to higher education. excelling in school, participating in college readiness programs, and doing everything right on paper and in spirit. But by junior year, I found myself without stable housing, struggling to balance survival mode with academics. When I had no choice but to seek help, I was faced with barriers and the overwhelming feeling of abandonment when child services never reached out, leaving me nowhere to turn. I'm not sure how youth get into foster care, but when I never got the call back, I knew that would not be an option for me. School proved to be my safe place and validated my need to pursue higher education. Even then, I was met with barriers, being told I could not attend college without a parent to fill out FAFSA. But I refused to give up. While applying for every scholarship I applied for or qualified for, I got my golden ticket to higher education from the McKinney-Vento Title I Hope office through a homeless verification letter and the partnership between Title I Hope, NPHY, and UNLV. Thanks to the creation of UNLV Hope Scholars, which allowed me to secure housing on UNLV campus, and my immense determination, I could walk across the stage at high school graduation knowing I had a future ahead of me. Even though housing was paid for through Hope Scholars, I still had to figure out how to pay my own tuition through federal financial aid and scholarships. Relying on scholarships so heavily often left me with the fear of losing a scholarship and ending my journey out of homelessness. If it wasn't for MPHY being able to pay my remaining balance the last semester of undergrad, I am not confident I have the privilege to call myself an alum, let alone a former homeless youth. Legislators, today, you have the power to say yes to hope, to opportunity, to break cycles that have trapped generations in struggle. Assembly Bill 397 is not just about degrees and diplomas. It's about lifting young people from uncertainty and allowing them to build something lasting, something no one can take away. The only reason I stand before you today as a former homeless youth, I'm so sorry. The only reason I stand before you today as a former homeless youth, a mother, a Nevada State employee is because of my opportunity to pursue higher education. This is about financial security, self-sufficiency, and a foundation that will enable future generations to thrive rather than just survive. Saying yes to Assembly Bill 397 is saying yes to futures rewritten, yes to potential realized, and then lives change forever. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Ms. Butler. Howard Watts for the record. I'll quickly walk you through the sections of the bill now. So Section 1 revises the existing statutory language related to the waiver for homeless or unaccompanied youth. You'll see one of the key areas is the replacement of may with shall, ensuring that this waiver will be offered in the future. You will see in subsection 1 the new sections A, B, and C, and these provide additional criteria which I think are helpful for ensuring that this gets to the youth that need it most, and it also provides clarity to the system of higher education and to institutions in how that they can verify that a student in fact qualifies for this, so that we don't have to worry about uncertainty or a lack of clarity around a student simply attesting to this, and that we have a clear checklist that would need to be completed. That checklist includes 1, the student must be 25 years of age or younger. They have to be enrolled in the system as a full-time or part-time undergraduate student, so this would not apply to graduate level coursework. They have to have completed out the FAFSA. Again, we want to make sure that we are bringing in all the additional resources we can to support these students to minimize the financial impact onto the state that this waiver would have. And then additionally, in D, they have to have experienced homelessness for a period of not less than 6 months, anytime between the ages of 12 and 25. And then in Section E, they have to have received services from either a public agency or a community-based organization that's purpose is to assist unaccompanied or homeless youth. And essentially that organization is kind of the facilitator or gateway to verifying that. And so because they've had that connection and interaction, then something would be a letter or other document would be provided in writing by that service providing organization, essentially attesting and certifying that young person has met the qualification of having that experience of homelessness. Again, and we also, just in terms of trying to align this waiver with others, did include other mandatory fees. So the current statute includes registration fees, laboratory fees, and we did include other mandatory fees. And the person has to be a resident of this state. So if they would not meet our residency requirements because they've left and come back, then they would not qualify. And so we're just making sure that we make that clear as well. Again, when we here on page 3 in this subsection 4, this is where we're lining up the verification requirements with the qualification requirements. So essentially, that documentation is going to have to be provided, and in subsection 5, that's what clearly states that it has to come from that organization. And then subsection 6 really qualifies that this is a last dollar program. Again, we're trying to minimize the fiscal impact to the state. We understand the budgetary situation that we're in, and we feel that it's most appropriate. While we would love to have there to be some left over to help with books and other financial expenses, our priority is making sure that there is no tuition burden or registration fee burden on these students. And so after they complete that FAFSA, after they've utilized all the available financial aid that comes to them, that is when this waiver would kick in to cover the balance. So that's what we mean when we say last dollar program. And then finally, I will make one note because you may be wondering about the lead lines of repealed sections on page 4. I did get contacted by representatives with the University of Nevada, Reno, and their Bureau of Mines and Geology. They're looking to clean up some language, so it's completely unrelated to the rest of the bill. But I figure when we have the opportunity to clean up some of our statutes when chapters open, and it's all related to improving higher education, I'm for it. So that's what that is about. It's obsolete statutory language that is being removed, but is unrelated to the main thrust of this bill. So that concludes our presentation. We appreciate your time and attention and are glad to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, we'll go ahead and go to questions. Members, can you just raise your hand to indicate if you have any questions? All right. First, we'll go ahead and start with Assembly Member Mosca.
Thank you so much, Chair, and thank you for bringing this bill. I was here last session, so I appreciate the way that also it is a last dollar and that there are caveats to it. And so do we have any estimate about, how many we're talking about then by school? Because I think once you put all these caveats, I can't imagine it's as many, but would love to hear that.
Thank you for that question, Assemblymember Mosca. May I go direct, Chair?
Yes, please
Thank you.
proceed.
Howard Watts for the record. So NPHY has worked on doing an analysis based on some of the information that we have. It is not entirely complete. So we have very robust information for Clark County, less for the rest of the state. But to help put this into context, we estimate that there are about 13 seniors across the state of Nevada who would be graduating this school year that would be eligible to receive this. And there's a few ways that we look at that. The overall number is a little bit higher, I think maybe around 18. But then when we consider existing research on the overlap between unaccompanied homeless youth and foster youth, we we figure that some folks are already covered under the foster youth waiver. And so that's kind of where we're at. And we do have some estimates based on the enrollment at different institutions of what that breakdown would look like. 3 students at UNLV, 2 at UNR, 1 at Nevada State College, 5 at the College of Southern Nevada, 2 at Truckee Meadows Community College, and 0 at Great Basin College and Western Nevada College. I will note, and we've been in conversations, I don't want to move this too far into the fiscal side of things, but obviously estimates of the number of students impacted are related to the fiscal aspect. You'll probably hear from the system of higher education about some of the information they have on their existing student body. So there would probably be some additional students that are already within the system that would also qualify. But I think giving you a very clear snapshot of where we're at with the data that we have about the students currently in high school, which of course is what we typically think are then those students moving into college. I think that helps provide some context about the size of youth that we're looking at.
Arash Ghafouri, CEO, MPHY for the record. I just want to add to that quite simply that the study was actually modeled using data from the 4-year NSHE study that they did on their own foster fee waiver. So a lot of the numbers, besides numbers related to young people experiencing homelessness and estimations of demand and similar behavior, were drawn from the data from NSHE's own study.
Thank you so much for that, because I know that, if you've experienced homelessness and then you've gone into an institution, you're doing all that you possibly can to make sure that you are on the path you want to be on. And I appreciate also hearing the testimony from the co-presenter. And so I actually have a question for NSHE, Chair, if that's okay. Thank you, Chancellor. I appreciate you coming up. And so I know, as being part of the NSHE formula study, we talk so much about wraparound services and making sure we can help the students who need it the most with the characteristics that they're going to need more help to retain and persist in higher education. So my question was just, is there any coverage of these types of students through the new funding formula, knowing we wanted to support wraparound services? Does that help at all?
For the record, Patty Charlton, Interim Chancellor, Nevada System of Higher Education. Thank you for that question, Assemblymember Mosca. So under the new funding formula, if approved, this students would be included, particularly as we look at full-time, part-time headcount, those that are Pell eligible. So yes, for students that are included, and since this is a last dollar program, it would be a part of that funding formula mix. As you also know, one of the items that we anticipate bringing back to the 2027 session would also look at other factors such as poverty, which we need to work through a common definition and data validation process, but that would be something for a future session.
Thank you. I have quite a few questions I know from members. So I'm going to go first to Assemblymember Ortlicker, and then Assemblymember DeLong, and then DeSilva, and then I know Hansen as well. So go ahead when you're ready, Ortlicker.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for bringing this bill. I'm a little like some more elaboration on, let's see, well, not sure which section, but it's at the end of page 3, subsection 6, which starts at the end of page 3 and carries on to page 4. So under A, if you're entitled to receive federal educational benefits, as you pointed out, draw those down first, which thank you for worrying about our budget. And then B, if they're not entitled to any benefits. So I can see some overcompensation and undercompensation from those two. So I'll tell you what I mean. On the undercompensation side, if any federal educational benefits include loans, then we might be saddling the student with loans. So that worries me. And under B, if they're not entitled to receive any federal educational benefits, I don't know what the cutoff these days is, but I'm wondering how high that is and what does that mean if they're not entitled to any benefits? Where's the need?
Thank you for that question, Assemblymember Orentlicker. Howard Watts for the record. I will definitely talk to the second part of your question first. And so, again, we want to make sure that folks are applying, but we understand that, and it's not just income, but there are various factors related to eligibility. And so the goal of this is to be comprehensive in that last dollar approach. So, if they're able to draw down various financial assistance, we want that to come in, and then the waiver would cover the balance. And then if they're not eligible for any reason, so they fill out the FAFSA and they're not eligible for Pell Grants, they're not eligible for any of the various financial aid and scholarships that may be out there, then the waiver will cover the entire balance. So that is definitely the intention with that. In terms of loans, I have to get back to you. I mean, I understand that federal loans are considered under financial assistance, and understand the concern that this may push students into getting loans. Again, we're trying to figure out how we can have some balance and some consistency with other waiver programs, and again, minimize the financial impact on the state so that we can get this up and running and across the finish line. I think that's something that we'll continue to talk about and work on. Our number one goal is to get this enacted and increase the financial opportunity for students beyond what they have today.
Yeah, please proceed.
Okay, so thank you for, I appreciate you looking in. Just on the B part, are there people who could fall in because their family really makes a lot of money now? Is that how B could, if they're not eligible at all for any financial assistance?
Howard Watts for the record. There are a few different things that could disqualify students from receiving assistance under FAFSA. I can follow up with you offline with some additional details. Income certainly would be one of those, and I will say, frankly, if knowing that there are some weird nuances to FAFSA and family relationships, but I would say if the student actually does have access to high income, then to the point that they don't qualify for any financial assistance, it's a pretty significant amount, and honestly, that's not the population that we're aimed at.
Thank you. I'll go next to Assemblymember DeLong.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much for the presentation. And I do appreciate you providing some clarity on Section 2, because I was going to ask about that. But my question actually has to do with subsection 1C. And in the testimony from Vegas, the statement was made that because a homeless individual didn't have a parent or a guardian to sign the form, they couldn't complete the FAFSA application. Is that being addressed at all in here?
Howard Watts for the record. I know that there have been continuing efforts to address issues with FAFSA. Unfortunately, the second F in FAFSA is federal, and so our ability to shape that on our own is sometimes limited. Again, there have been issues, particularly with students that have had strained or lost relationships with family members that have historically made that difficult. I do think there have been some efforts to provide some alternatives and other options so that students can complete and submit a FAFSA. But again, that might be something that we might have to get some additional expertise on and provide a more thorough answer for you offline.
Follow-up, Chair, if I may. Yeah. So if that is the case, and the F is critical, the second F, are we setting up a criteria then homeless students that don't have a guardian or a parent to sign are then fall through the cracks in this program, which I don't think is the intent of what you're trying to do.
Thank you for that question, Assemblymember DeLong. Howard Watts for the record. I think one of the other important things to consider around timing as well is, are they a minor or are they an adult? And so we could certainly run into some timing issues with some students, but once they reach the age of 18, they no longer need a parent or guardian to sign anything. And so that is one thing I can think of off the top of my head that could help address some of those issues if they remain. Again, not ideal, but we're trying to do the best that we can to make this a workable policy that gets enacted.
Thank you. I'll go next to Assembly Vice Chair De Silva.
Thank you, Chair. So I just had a real quick question here. I know that we're using the term undergraduate, programs. So two-part question. So one, we're talking about 4-year bachelor's degrees, but we'll also be talking about associate's degrees as well too, that will be covered by this tuition plan. And then secondly too, for students who may slip inadvertently below the 2.0 GPA program, has there been any thought or consideration about programs to rehab that student, to bring them back, maybe like the way they had it with the Millennium Scholarship, where you can have maybe one semester to bring your GPA back above a 2.0 or something like that, just to have you thinking about that.
Thank you, Assemblymember De Silva, Vice Chair De Silva, Howard Watts for the record. I appreciate that. And yes, very aware of kind of probationary periods and things like that. Again, our goal is that this follows the same guidelines as other waiver programs. And so however we can harmonize those things, we want to do that. But definitely appreciate the concern. And yes, this would apply to both associates programs as well as bachelor's programs, any undergraduate education. And then I believe Ms. Butler might have wanted to add in something, perhaps in response to Assemblymember DeLong's question.
Yes, I did. Thank you. Teresa Butler for the record. So when I was graduating from high school, I filled out FAFSA for myself, and I'm not sure if I uploaded with FAFSA or if I gave my homeless verification form to UNLV FAFSA office or financial aid office, I'm sorry. The homeless verification letter came from Title I Hope, and that was literally all I needed. And then in the FAFSA, it does ask are you unaccompanied youth? And then I think the verification is done at the college. So I did not need a parent. And then when I turned 18 the next year, I was okay. And then I think that was all. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. At this time, we'll go ahead and go to Assemblymember Hansen.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you both for being here, and thank you, Mr. Ghafouri, for the work that you do. And Ms. Butler, your story has been an inspiration of what you've had to overcome, and so thank you for sharing that story. In regards to Section 1, Sub 1, can you give us an idea when it talks about the waiver of the payment of registration fees, lab fees, other mandatory fees that are assessed each semester? I know we're not a money committee, but just to get general knowledge for people who might not be aware, what those costs can look like. And I think a guesstimate is fine, just to give us an idea of what kind of burden that can be.
Thank you for that question, Assemblymember Hansen. Howard Watts for the record. Honestly, I'm not going to venture a guess at what the current rates are, but I think it is important that when we talk about the system of higher education, tuition, in a sense, is actually what's charged to out-of-state students. So what we have are registration fees. They're paid usually per credit hour for a course. And so, whether that's a,
Assemblymember, I think the Chancellor's going to help you out.
Okay, great. So I will say before I turn it over to the Chancellor that I think those, there's some variance in those registration fees. Then there are laboratory fees for courses that have laboratory components within them. But then some institutions also have other fees that are tacked on that are also mandatory. So you have to pay those additional fees in order to register for that course. And so what we don't want, that's why we added that language around the other mandatory fees, because we don't want to end up in a situation where it waives a certain chunk, but then still leaves a certain amount of balance. The goal is that anything that you've got to pay to sign up for a class, that would be completely covered by the waiver at the end of the day.
For the record, Patty Charlton, Interim Chancellor. Actually, I don't think you need me after all. I think we're going to draft him. But Assemblymember Hansen, just for the record, depending on the type of program that a student enrolls in, there could be a differential, for example, a differential registration fee. Perhaps I'm a nursing student. Because of the cost of education, that program has additional costs that are factored into that, as well as other factors such as laboratory fees for the consumable materials that are part of the extraordinary cost of the education. And then those other things, for example, our universities also have a mental health fee because they recognize that that was an unmet need that we had. And so those institutions implemented a mental health fee that is mandatory at the campuses. So there are other fees that come in and above. And then the other factor is, and I think to some of the cost elements, relates to the cost of education. That is a total cost that is calculated actually by the institutions, and they have to provide that to the federal government for purposes of FAFSA. So the Pell Grant will only go so far. And so as you get into some of your upper division programs, particularly for undergraduate education, depending on where you are, the costs do go up significantly. And so, and I think to Assemblyman Ornlicher's point, we never want to have students have to take loans, but it's just the cost of attendance at this point in time and the cost of increasing inflation as well.
Arash Ghafouri CEO, MPHY for the record. Anecdotally, we can also say here, using the NC Foster fee waiver, that the cost per pupil that remained to the pupil if unwaived would have been around $400 to $4,500. So that's just from that NC study as well. And also just want to quickly mention that in regards to the questions about FAFSA, that the federal government did recognize a little more the difficulties that unaccompanied youth have, both in verifying their status and proving that they were not actually associated with their family in any way. But the FAFSA does allow unaccompanied youth to fill out a FAFSA entirely on their own. So I think this is a matter of educating more counselors in the NC system and throughout the state that this right is already afforded to young people when it comes to their FAFSA. Thank you.
Thank you. Assemblymember Flanagan.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the presentation. I believe Assemblymember Watts identified a universe of 13 to maybe 18 students at this time, like in the senior space, that might want to take advantage of the program. And these kind of programs are great, but we know that it requires sort of a comprehensive approach. So this may be more to MPHY to talk about what the entire net of safety net looks like in terms of if they're homeless now, are they homeless in school? Do you track this universe? Have you created the partnerships to ensure the success? Because it's one thing to cover admission fees, but if I'm still homeless or I don't have a job or I'm hungry.
Great question, Assemblymember Flanagan. So my name is Arash Ghafouri, CEO and MPHY for the record. So we believe that that in order to help young people experiencing homelessness with college success, that it has to be an entire communal approach, right? So we already at Nevada Partnership for Homeless Youth and other organizations have worked out a program with UNLV, for example, where if UNLV can cover some of the housing, some other things, we can try to get scholarships, provide wraparound support, even co-enroll young people experiencing homelessness both in their freshman year to whatever university they're going to, like UNLV, and NPHY at the same time, so they have case management support, etc. So what we are arguing for today is not that we're not in a position to help. For example, you heard Ms. Butler testify that we came in and paid some resources for that last semester so they could graduate. What we want is for young people like Ms. Butler not to just get lucky, but to actually have the ability to be afforded the right to receive that education, and not like Ms. Butler's circumstance where she had to worry every day whether she was going to be able to continue to be successful in her attempts to invest in herself. So we are committed to the system of higher education on the community side, that we're happy to support and uplift this waiver by making sure that we on the community side can respond and provide other services to these young people to ensure that between us and the NC system, we can ensure their success as much as possible.
Thank you, members. Any additional questions? At this time, I will go ahead and invite anyone wishing. Oh, go ahead, Assemblymember Watts.
Thank you, Chair, for the indulgence. Howard Watts for the record. I just wanted to thank you, and please do not see this as rude, but I do need to go and take over chairing my committee that started about 40 minutes ago. So I will. I just wanted to thank you and waive my closing comments in advance, but I will not be able to stay for testimony, unfortunately.
Thank you. That's so unfortunate because I know that committee is not as hardworking, but we do appreciate it. And we do appreciate it, and I appreciate that you were able to join us for this bill presentation today. At this time, we'll go ahead and move into support of AB 397. Is there anyone in Carson City wishing to testify in support of AB 397? Please begin when you're ready. Don't forget to state and spell your name for the record. We are going to do 20 minutes of support, 20 minutes of opposition, and 20 minutes in neutral. The time is now 2:16. Please begin when you're ready.
A.B. Payson, AMY, PASON, and I'm part of the Nevada Faculty Alliance, and we are in support of this bill as we are in support of access to all students and that we encourage the legislature to support all of our public education so we can serve all of our students.
Good afternoon, Chair Torres Fawcett and members of the extremely hardworking Assembly Committee on Education. My name is Carissa Pierce, Carissa Pearce, and I am the Government Affairs Manager with the Children's Advocacy Alliance. And I'm here to speak on behalf of the thousands of young people who have experienced homelessness and who are seeking a chance to build a better future through education. Homelessness for our youth is a traumatic experience that can leave long-lasting harmful effects. It often disrupts their education, constrain mental and emotional well-being, and limit opportunities. Yet, despite these obstacles, our young people possess immense potential. They are resilient, resourceful, and determined to succeed, but they face a roadblock that many of us will never experience: financial insecurity. The cost of secondary education is a huge barrier that often stands between them and the education they desperately need to break the cycle of poverty. Providing access to secondary education without tuition and fees for young people who have experienced homelessness is not just an act of kindness, it's an investment in our future, where our students are more likely to contribute to their communities, to our economy, and to society as a whole, once given the opportunity to gain the skills and knowledge that they need to thrive. So we ask you today to support our youth who have faced homelessness and appreciate your consideration of this bill, and thank you for the opportunity to provide comment.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the Assembly Committee on Education. My name is Kennedy Taylor, Kennedy Taylor for the record, and I serve as the Director of Government Affairs for the Associated Students of the University of Nevada. Today I'm here to express our strong support for AB 397, expanding fee waivers for those receiving higher education and who have experienced homelessness. At the University of Nevada, Reno, 74% of students reported experiencing financial insecurity, with one of the biggest challenges being the lack of accessible and affordable housing in Reno. This bill takes an essential step in ensuring that students who have experienced homelessness have a fair opportunity to pursue higher education without overwhelming financial barriers. As a student myself, I see firsthand the challenges that financial insecurity presents, and for many, higher education is a pathway out of that hardship. However, tuition and fees can make that path nearly impossible to navigate. AB 397 strengthens the existing fee waiver program by making it a requirement rather than an option, ensuring that eligible students receive the support they need to succeed in their academic journeys. Higher education should be accessible to all students, regardless of socioeconomic background. AB 397 affirms Nevada's commitment to equity in education by ensuring that students who have experienced homelessness are not forced to choose between survival and their future. On behalf of ASUN and their undergraduate students we represent, I politely urge your support for AB 397 to help alleviate financial hardships and empower students to invest in their futures. Thank you for your time, and go Pack.
Go Pack.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Dylan Shaver here today on behalf of the Eddy House, not my usual client in this committee, but the Eddy House is the only youth shelter in northern Nevada. I've been a volunteer there for almost 10 years, on the board for almost 6. The Eddy House is in support of this legislation because it is our role in this community to provide a source of stability for homeless youth aged 18 to 24 in the region. And not just as that safe space, but also as a place to develop both life and professional skills. This bill very much aligns with the mission, and I want to put yourself in the shoes of a young person who is on the streets, who comes into the Eddy House without those skills, often without an ID or a social security card, and jumping through all of the hoops society requires of you to just become a member. And then layer on top of that the tenacity, the drive, the grit required to actually apply on the FAFSA, get into one of our amazing universities, Go Pack, and from there go on to pursue a higher education. That is a person we want to go to college. We want them to get through college, and I can guarantee this committee that if that person makes it through, that the small investment the bill asks of you will pay dividends back to all of us. So with that, I'd love to thank Chairman Watts for bringing such a positive bill and moving it forward. And while I do have 22 seconds left, Madam Chair, I will say that 20 years working in the mining industry, I did not know that I could go to the University of Nevada and have minerals sampled on my behalf as a resident. And I guess if I didn't know, it's probably okay to take it away.
Chair, members of the committee, Jonathan Norman, NORMAN, Nevada Coalition of Legal Service Providers. We serve foster kids in Clark County and Washoe and the surrounding counties, and I think the kids facing homelessness, often that's a Venn diagram, and those kids are very similar, and they're facing the same issues getting a start in life. So we're big fans of what NPHY does and the Eddy House, so we support the bill and ditto the last comments. Go Pack.
Always Go Pack.
Hello, for the record, my name is Kaylee Krentz, K-A-L-Y-K-R-E-N-T-Z. I am part of the Washoe Education Association, but I'm here speaking on my behalf on this bill due to my own life experience being the foster parent of a former student. After this session, all of you, I'm pretty sure, will know about my 5.5 kids and my blended family. I'm sure you're welcome. They're pretty awesome. Homeless youth face significant barriers to accessing higher education, leaving them at a severe disadvantage. These young people are often forced to focus on immediate survival rather than long-term goals like college, which put them behind their peers in terms of academic progress and opportunities. I've experienced this firsthand with my former foster child, who is still struggling to find a way to the future. Without stable housing, financial resources, or a supportive network, they are unable to pursue higher educations in the same way that their peers can. Teaching at a middle school in Nevada that has approximately 47% of my students in transition. For those of you who don't know what transition is, it means students with unstable housing or homelessness. This tells me that almost 1/2 of my current students aren't likely to have the ability to pursue higher education because of homelessness. This lack of access limits my students' future prospects, perpetuating a cycle of poverty. Investing in their education is an investment in a brighter, more equitable future for all. Thank you all for your time.
Reverend Paul Larson, P-A-U-L-L-A-R-S-O-N, with Lutheran Engagement and Advocacy in Nevada. On behalf of Lutherans across Nevada, we strongly urge the support of AB 397.
Thank you. At this time, we'll go ahead and go to Las Vegas.
Thank you, Chair Torres Fawcett, De Silva, and committee. I'm here now, Doug Unger, D-O-U-G, U-N-G-E-R, testifying as an individual citizen and a professor. One reason is that my experience about 6 decades ago was in and out and on and off, inclusive of and adjacent to the at-risk population addressed in this bill. I was lucky. My family came back together, and one thing and another happened. I ended up in Argentina with another family that provided me with many, many opportunities. Bienvenido a la gente bien. What I want to tell you is that personal experience, when it happens out there, there's a condition of hopelessness and helplessness that descends over the body and soul when what that kid needs, what that kid longs for is simply to be seen, to be assured that they have value, and that assurance alone can give new hope. AB 397 will reach out to at least some of the homeless youth population through the filter of contact with nonprofit and assistance organizations and provide that hope. As a professor, I will also say that in 2001, 2003, and 2007 at UNLV, through the precursor organization of the Black Mountain Institute, I directed a Writers in the School program with a focus on at-risk youth who had been identified as such by their teachers in the CCSD, some of whom were homeless. One girl was sleeping in a doorway, another was couch surfing. We had one kid we had trouble contacting, but eventually did. We put graduate assistant mentors on these at-risk kids, let them know they were valued, gave them uplifting contact with writers, and provided a settling in scholarship the day they were admitted to college. It was a wonderfully successful program and showed us that even that much stimulation and acknowledgement to them to induce them to go to higher education would make a difference.
Thank you so much for your
AB
remarks.
397 will make a difference.
Thank you, Dr.
And,
Unger. Sorry, I have to go to the next
thank
speaker.
you very much.
Thank you. Next, please.
Good afternoon, Chair, members of the committee. My name is Chandler Cooks, ChandlerCooks, and I stand before you in full support of AB 397. Education should be a pathway out of hardship, not another roadblock in the way. And for students who have experienced homelessness, surviving is already a full-time job. Imagine waking up on a friend's couch or in the backseat of a car, unsure where you'll sleep tomorrow, let alone how you'll afford tuition, fees, or books. These young people aren't just fighting to earn a diploma, they're fighting to survive. I know this because I've seen it. I've met students who juggle classes by day and struggle to find a place to rest their heads by night. They show up to school with backpacks full of dreams, but empty wallets, empty stomachs, and nowhere to go when the day ends. AB 397 is their chance to break that cycle by creating a mandatory fee waiver for students who've experienced homelessness. This bill doesn't just provide financial relief, it offers hope, dignity, and the promise of a future they've been fighting for a long time. This is so much more than waiving fees. It's about removing the barriers that push these students to the brink. And when you don't know where your next meal is coming from or where you'll sleep tonight, the burden of paying hundreds of dollars in fees can be the final push that forces you to walk away from school altogether. AB 397 tells these students you belong here, you deserve to learn, and you deserve a chance. And to piggyback off of Assemblyman De Silva's comments, we must also recognize that these students may face gaps in academic readiness, mental health struggles, or emotional exhaustion. They don't just need a fee waiver, they need mentors, guidance, and people willing to stand beside them as they navigate higher education. This isn't charity, it's justice. These students have faced obstacles most of us can't imagine, yet they're still showing up, determined to create a better life. And I urge you to pass AB 397 and show these students that circumstances do not define their future. Thank you.
ABH, is there anyone on the line wishing to testify in support of this piece of legislation?
If you would like to testify in support of Assembly Bill 397, please press star 9 now to join the queue.
Hello, dear members of the committee. My name is Yesenia Moya, Yesenia Moya. I am here in support of AB 397. I am a proud product of CCSD. My family and I are from Mexico. My mother did not finish elementary school, yet she taught herself to read and write and speak English on her own when she came here. Her determination and grit continue to inspire me, and as a result, I became the first in my entire family to graduate from a university. I experienced homelessness during my senior year of high school and the year after, and since then. I studied hard because I was told my entire life that graduating meant I had made it, that going to college would allow me to lift my family out of poverty, and that I could achieve anything. Unfortunately, I faced countless barriers to continue my education, including my immigration status, financial struggles, and more. Each day I had to figure out where I was going to sleep, what to eat, where I would go after school. I would spend as much time in the building as I could till I could get kicked out. I scraped together change to afford the RTC bus rides to get to school, depending on where I had stayed the night before. I did everything in my power to graduate, yet I was unable to continue my education immediately, so instead I began work. 5 years later, I was finally able to start school at CSN as a non-traditional student. I had to navigate payments, FAFSA, scholarships, class schedules, all without a mentor or guidance as a first-gen student. During my second year at UNLV, I became homeless once again. I sought food stamps and other support, but I was turned away. I was told that school was a choice, and in order to receive help, I would have to quit college and take on another full-time job to prove my need. At UNLV, I knew friends who slept in the library because, like me, they had nowhere else to go, just as in high school. I relied on the kindness of professors and staff who understood my situation. I am deeply grateful to programs like the Millennium Scholarship, Hope Scholars, and the Intersection at UNLV, which provided me with bus passes.
Thank you,
food
Ms.
cards,
Maya,
and
for your
more.
testimony. If you have any additional remarks, please make sure you submit them to my committee staff. Thank you.
Will do.
Chair, there are no additional callers choosing to testify at this time.
Thank you. At this time, I'll invite anyone wishing to testify in opposition to AB 389. I'm sorry, 397. Please begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Chair Torres Fawcett and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Patty Charlton, and I'm the Interim Chancellor for the Nevada System of Higher Education. Please know that NSHE remains committed to its access-driven mission and working to ensure that all Nevadans, especially our most vulnerable populations, have pathways to higher education. We appreciate the intent of AB 397 and the good conversations that we have had with Assemblyman Member Watts and will continue to have in our shared interest to recognize the importance of supporting this community. Unfortunately, at this time, due to committee rules, we must oppose the bill due to fiscal concerns and the ongoing uncertainties surrounding multiple fee waivers and the proposals that are under consideration this session and those that are already in place. Given the potential financial impact on our institutions and the broader budgetary implications, we believe it is crucial and critical to fully assess those measures collectively of all the fee waivers before moving forward with additional ones. That said, we remain eager to work with the bill sponsor and all legislators on all fee waiver legislation to find solutions that expand access to higher education while maintaining the fiscal stability of our institutions. We appreciate the ongoing discussions on this issue and look forward to collaborating on a path forward. I also do want to note that we appreciate Assemblymember Watt's assistance in cleaning up the language on the analysis of ore, minerals, soils, and water. And thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. I do not see any additional opposition for AB 397 at this time, and I do not see anyone in Las Vegas either. AVH, is there anyone on the line?
If you would like to testify in opposition to Assembly Bill 397, please press star 9 now to join the queue. Chair, there are no callers choosing to testify at this time.
Thank you. Is there anyone wishing to testify neutral to AB 397? I do not see any here in Carson nor in Las Vegas. ABH, is there anyone on the line wishing to testify neutral to AB 397?
If you would like to testify in neutral for Assembly Bill 397, please press star 9 to join the queue. Chair, there are no callers choosing to testify at this time.
Thank you. With that, we will go ahead and close the hearing on AB 397, recognizing that the presenter requested to close the hearing at this point. So we'll close the hearing and we will go ahead and do a 1-minute recess.
I will now open the hearing on AB 389, which revises provisions relating to education. We have the bill sponsor, Assemblymember Chair Torres Fawcett. Please go ahead when you're ready.
Thank you, Vice Chair De Silva, and members of the most academic committee in the Nevada State Legislature, the Committee on Education. I am Assembly Member Selena Torres Fawcett, and I proudly represent Assembly District 3. Today I will be presenting AB 389, which revises provisions relating to education. Today I am joined in Las Vegas by Dr. Anna Colquitt, the Director of Education Policy with the Gwynn Center, who joined us just a couple weeks ago in this committee room. And she will discuss the insights from the recent research related to AB 389. Additionally, via Zoom, we are joined by Kristen Wagner, representative from Infinite Campus, and she will be able to support us with any additional questions that might have to do with the information system as well. I'm going to give some background information before I pass it over to Dr. Colquitt, especially as it pertains to this piece of legislation. This bill stems from recommendations that were outlined by the Commission on School Funding Report, pages 439 through 475, and it addresses the pressing issue in Nevada's education system, the need for a centralized student data reporting. Nevada's Department of Education currently relies on school districts to submit student data on a quarterly basis, but the process is fragmented and inefficient. Furthermore, a significant challenge facing educators is the uncertainty of student enrollment post-COVID. Schools struggle to determine whether students have transferred districts or dropped out entirely. This bill seeks to streamline student tracking and improve data accuracy by implementing a statewide license for IC, which is Infinite Campus, a web and mobile-based information system already used by NDE in our school districts. With NDE maintaining and coordinating IC statewide, districts will benefit from a standardized system for tracking student enrollment, attendance, grades, class sizes, and behavior that districts continue to own. Once again, the districts will continue to own this data, but it'll be purchased at a statewide level. Reduced reporting burden for schools and school districts. NDE will also be able to pull this data weekly, so I know that there may be concerns about quarterly being removed, but this information would be readily available to the department every single week instead of right now, which is like waiting for the quarter for that bulk upload. Additionally, this piece of legislation includes automated data collection, which minimizes that manual reporting by allowing NDE to pull the existing records, and it reduces some of the human error that might occur alongside that reporting. Importantly, this legislation does not limit district control over their individual systems. Districts will retain customization options within IC while benefiting from a centralized government structure that includes stakeholder representation. I am told that CCSD and Washoe County have very modernized uses of IC. They will continue to be able to have all of these add-ons that they like and prefer for data collection for their districts and for instruction for their students and families. By ensuring student data is seamlessly transferable, this bill promotes a smoother transition for students who move between districts and allows educators to better support student learning without delays caused by fragmented reporting system. At this time, I will go ahead and pass it over to Dr. Colquitt to go over how AB 389 aligns with our current research that was presented to us earlier this session and further addresses the importance of amending reporting frameworks now.
Thank you, Chair Torres Fawcett. Good afternoon, Vice Chair De Silva and members of the committee. My name is Dr. Anna Colquitt, and I am the Director of Education Policy at the Gwynn Center, a statewide nonpartisan policy research center affiliated with the University of Nevada, Reno. We are committed to providing independent, data-driven research to inform Nevada's policy landscape. Thank you for this opportunity to provide insight on our research as it relates to AB 389. In October, we published a report on the Pupil-Centered Funding Plan, the PCFP, and its implementation across the state. This report was commissioned by the Nevada Department of Education, and our study analyzed how state allocations, federal funds, and community contributions support students across the state. Our goal was to define and visualize funding streams, compare portfolios across school types, and assess the impact of the PCFP on educational equity. We had the honor of working with Dr. Jennifer McClendon, a faculty researcher at the University of Nevada, Reno, and Kashfa, a UNR graduate assistant, along with our Gwynn Center team, Todd Butterworth, senior education researcher, and Robin Evans, our GIS specialist. The methodology for this research included analyzing state and district funding data, mapping distributions using Geographic Information Systems, or GIS, and conducting interviews with school and district administrators to understand how funding changes affect schools. Some major findings from our research included that the PCFP has made huge strides, but at the end of the day, funding is still not adequate and there's work to do in streamlining that distribution of funds. We also found that there are complexities in ensuring equitable distribution of funds, and that remains a challenge given the differing levels of budgetary autonomy and differential resource disparities across districts. Additionally, there were 3 key findings in our report that involve data accessibility and reporting, which will be the focus for our discussion today. In our research, we uncovered a paradox in financial reporting in Nevada. Schools face redundant, burdensome reporting requirements, yet there remain significant gaps in the data and public access to that financial data. There's a simultaneous need to simplify and enhance the transparency of school funding reports while reducing the administrative burden of reporting for schools and districts. The first key finding from our research is that missing data is pervasive in the school funding space. Fragmented reporting processes lead to critical omissions in financial data. Outside of the vast quantity of data that needs to be reported, there are also missing requirements for reporting actual expenditures down to the school level. Since the new funding formula aims to address individual student needs, we should be tracking funds as closely to the student level as possible. The second finding was that there is a gap between the new funding formula and accountability. The new funding formula lacks a clear accountability framework to ensure funds address targeted student needs. When funding was not tied to addressing things like re-engaging students in school if they are at risk of not graduating, the metrics did not need to account for needs outside of academic performance. But since the funding mechanisms are now tied to these factors, it is critical to align the accountability and performance metrics to the targeted facets of the PCFP. Finally, the third main finding is the lack of accessibility of financial reporting data. For our report, we had to utilize data that spanned multiple years and still had gaps because there was not one place to find all of the data we needed. This was our reality even with a data sharing agreement. From an accountability perspective, it is critical that our district administrators, state officials, policymakers, and community members at large are able to see where funds are allocated and spent on education. This missed opportunity for transparency was noted several times in our research. We included 17 policy recommendations based on the findings of our research. Those recommendations are all included at the end of our report in 5 categories, 2 of which relate to this bill. First, we suggest standardized reporting and data collection. Our recommendation involves considering requiring NDE to adopt regulations creating mandatory standardized guidelines for schools to follow when collecting and reporting financial data. These regulations should include specifying the metrics to be tracked, the frequency of reporting. We found that quarterly reporting is too burdensome on districts, and the format for submitting data. There has been movement made on addressing the extent of data collected, but the lack of accessibility persists. To address the accessibility concern, we suggest that there is a centralized statewide data system for financial reporting and accountability metrics. We propose a 2-pronged approach to this data system. First is a centralized infinite campus system to streamline state data collection without overburdening districts. And second, a publicly accessible financial reporting platform that allows funding transparency with accountability metrics. Having a centralized infinite campus data system would allow the state to pull the data they need for reporting on a frequent basis without burdening the districts with that collection. Then when a student transfers or when the state wants data counts on something today, they have all of the data they need in an accessible format. The second aspect of this is public data accessibility and the ties to the accountability metrics. As mentioned previously, we should all be able to see how education funds are being spent down to the school level. Since in every district outside of CCSD, those decisions are being made at the district level, this would involve district and school participation for reporting into a centralized and accessible data system. This also involves reassessing performance metrics to be aligned with the new targeted spending through the PCFP. Through the course of our research, the Commission on School Funding was simultaneously reviewing similar aspects of the PCFP and included complementary recommendations in their report. The Commission on School Funding recommends eliminating redundant financial reports, including the summary financial report, quarterly financial reporting, and the minimum expenditure report. Additionally, they propose expanding the NRS 387-303 report and consolidating it with the state's chart of accounts, which would also eliminate the need for third-party vendors. The Commission also suggests reducing the frequency of ACing accountability reports and class size reports from quarterly to annual, as the data remains largely unchanged throughout the school year and is more effectively reported on an annual basis. Thank you for the opportunity to provide this analysis. Once we are finished with the bill presentation, I'm happy to answer any questions the committee may have.
Thank you, Dr. Colquitt. At this time, I'll go ahead and just provide a quick overview of the bill. Section 1 of AB 389 requires that the state superintendent use previously submitted materials to the greatest extent possible and avoid duplicative requests when compiling information or report data on metrics of performance for public schools. So what many of you might not know is that there's many reports that request the exact same data, same information, and so this would empower the superintendent to be able to pull those data points on their own. Section 2 and 3 outline the requirements of standardized program for collecting, validating, maintaining, and transferring electronic pupil records. The program is to be implemented by the superintendent for the use of all districts and charter schools. Section 3 is amended to add a provision requiring that school districts help fund the statewide IC system by permitting NDE to withdraw funds from the district's PCFP portion. This will help NDE shoulder the cost of statewide IC license. Additionally, in my conversation with IC, who I met with before this legislative session began, they have confirmed that this would also help with us pulling that data on a weekly basis. Right now, the systems to IC do not all sync up as one would expect, and so districts have to purchase their own IC. Every district or charter school is purchasing their own IC. This would make it at a statewide level so that we were purchasing IC, and so they would be better able to sync. Additionally, what you might not know is, we do require state testing for every grade level. This would allow for that state testing to transfer between schools as well. Right now, if a fifth grader takes the SBAC, that data is actually not sent to the middle school. So the middle school would never receive that data. This would allow for that data to be then transferred, which I think could also show improvements in instruction as well, because they would be able to review their students' assessments on the state testing and make instructional decisions based off of that data. The amendment to Section 4 places all the duties recommended to the Commission on School Funding under the Commission of Innovation, Excellence, and Education instead. This was at the recommendation of NDE, and the reasoning behind this change is that CSF requires financial expertise, whereas CIEE possesses the institutional knowledge, and CIEE has not only business leaders on there, but it does have superintendents in that conversation, people from NDE, assembly members as well, so it could better develop into policy as well. Whereas whereas all the CFOs are on the Commission on School Funding, the CIE is a little bit more has more institutional knowledge on education issues. In Section 4, the CIE is tasked with reviewing the state's current data reporting, tracking, and monitoring processes related to pupil achievement and financial accountability. This aims to identify redundant or non-essential reporting requirements that do not contribute to meaningful insights for evaluating or improving Nevada's educational programs. And while I've loved being a member of this committee for the 3 sessions that I have served prior to this one, one thing that I have noticed is that we are constantly putting more reports on schools and we are never taking them away. And so this piece of legislation requires that we are having a conversation on reporting that is no longer necessary. There's sometimes districts required to complete reports that do not pertain to them, or for funds that no longer exist, or for technology that doesn't exist. And so this allows for us to eliminate some of that reporting. Additionally, CIEE must develop a data reporting framework framework that organizes information in a user-friendly manner. This framework will focus on identifying student proficiency and growth areas, achievement gaps amongst student groups, and actionable data to inform policies and practices aimed at improving educational outcomes. So that is more about the data collection, making sure there's a platform for us to view that data in an easy, user-friendly way, so that we can actually create policy off of what we are looking at with the data. Furthermore, the CIEE is required to present its findings and recommendations to the Joint Interim Standing Committee on Education with specific proposals for eliminating redundant reporting requirements and improving data alignment with state educational priorities. After receiving input from the committee, the Commission must submit its final recommendations to the Governor and LCB for consideration by the Legislature. Section 5 specifies that the CSF will review data and metrics annually to identify how funding for the pupil-centered funding plan, I think that would actually be the CIEE, is being used to improve the academic performance and progress of pupils. The reviews to include data and metrics submitted by a school district or charter school, including data previously reported by the superintendent or NDE. Section 6 clarifies that each quarter of each school year, the Board of Trustees of a school district must publish a list of expenditures the school district made during the previous school year's quarter on the district's website rather than newspaper. Sections 7, 8, 9, and 10 streamline requirements of school districts and the Board of Education, shifting some reports and plans from quarterly to annual and removing or changing certain requirements. These were things that were recommended by the Commission on School Funding's report that was published, I believe, in November. Section 11 repeals NRS 387.206 relating to the requirement for NDE to recommend minimum amount to be spent by public schools on textbooks and other instructional supplies, and NRS 387.2062, which relates to reporting requirements for NDE concerning failure of certain entities to comply with recommended minimum expenditure as described in NRS 387.206. During the interim, I had many conversations with school leaders and with teachers alike, and many of them expressed their frustration with the over amount of reporting or the large central offices. This piece of legislation takes a step so that we can help reduce some of that, reduce the burden on administrators, get administrators in our classrooms, and really make sure that we are able to look at this data in a comprehensive way to improve our policy here in the state of Nevada. At this time, I'm open for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Torres. Members, are there any questions? Assemblymember Mosca.
Thank you, Vice Chair, and thank you, Chair, for, I think, a very important bill to help our educators in the work. I was actually surprised to know it's not a state license. Do we just know why that wasn't in the first place?
One moment, NDE is going to come over. I found a friend.
Good afternoon. Peter Zutz, Office of Assessment Data Accountability Management at the Department of Education. So the statewide system of, or SIS, Student Information System, was adopted in 2015. At that time, there were districts already, I'm not going to name them, but two of our larger districts really deep in with Infinite Campus. And what I mean by that is that they already had implemented it quite effectively and pervasively in their districts, and they had also highly customized their district edition. So we refer to the edition we have at the state as the state edition. There's a single state edition. And then each, as the chair mentioned, each one of our districts has a district edition. Currently, they are any way they want to customize or enhance that to fit their district needs, they may do. And then, of course, with our state-sponsored charter schools, they also have a district edition, so they can customize that, especially the calendar element of Infinite Campus, which is very important aspect and element of that. Thank you.
And Assemblymember Torres Fawcett, for the record, thank you for supporting me in that answer for the question. But I also want to just make sure that it's clear that districts would be able to continue those customization. And that was a conversation that we had with IC before the session started, with just making sure that they would be able to continue those customizations. So the districts are aware of that for today's hearing.
Assemblymember DeLong.
Thank you, Chair. You may not want to leave. Thanks for the presentation. Just kind of a clarification on the Infinite Campus licensing. So the state's going to be buying a statewide license and then taking some of the pupil-centered funding from each of the districts to help fund for that. Will each of the districts still have to buy their own license?
Assemblymember Torres Fawcett for the record. No. So the state would be purchasing the statewide information system as well as like the tools needed for the districts to have theirs. Now, if districts want to add on, so my understanding is specifically Clark and Washoe do have extra add-ons onto the license that they do have, they can continue to add those on to the license that we have. So we're buying it, and then if they want any extras, they can still continue to add those on to the license they have without having to pay the full amount that we as a state would be purchasing. So in the long run, because we would be purchasing it in bulk, almost like a Costco purchase for Infinite Campus, I would see that this could be possibly cheaper over time too.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Vice Chair. Sorry, I guess you could have left.
Assemblymember Flanagan.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Thank you for the presentation. In the report, I may have just overlooked it, a lot of references to annual versus the quarterly. So wondering how it helps with districts or schools to benchmark throughout the year to see how they're performing, or can they just pull the data, even though the report is due annually, can they pull the data as needed to improve different areas where student performance may be lacking, or to determine how they're doing to forecast?
Yes, Assemblymember Torres Fawcett for the record, and Dr. Colquitt, feel free to jump in whenever as well. But yes, they would still be able to pull that data whenever. It just has to do with the reporting element, and the reporting element is time consuming. Sometimes you are spending multiple days putting together a report that is due to the department. So depending on the report that it is requesting. So it's not that our schools would not be looking at that data. The data is definitely very much available, right? It's about the reporting system. Additionally, because we would be purchasing this information system from the state, in my conversation with IC, it has been made clear that the department would be able to pull anything that had to do with the information system weekly. So it would actually be increased amount of availability of information so that we could notice certain trends and changes.
Anna Colquitt for the record. One additional aspect there is that most of these reporting requirements, the data remains largely unchanged throughout the course of the school year. So reporting it quarterly is just not the most effective use of time, as Chair Torres Fawcett noted.
Members, any additional questions? Okay, seeing no questions, next we will hear testimony on the bill. Testimony will be limited to 20-minute windows for support, opposition, and neutral, with 2 minutes per person. We will start here in Carson City, followed by Las Vegas, and then the phones. Please keep remarks to the point and remember to state and spell your name for the record. First, we'll hear testimony in support of AB 389.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the committee of the most studious committee in the building. My name is Eduardo Martinez, Western Public Affairs, on behalf of the Nevada Charter School Association. We support the sponsor and the bill's intent to modernize and reduce the redundant or reporting requirements that currently exist, and allowing the educators to focus on what matters most. That educational instruction that they're there to do. We urge your support in support of this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair De Silva and members of the committee. For the record, Dylan Shaver with Pinion Public Affairs here on behalf of the Washoe County School District. Wanted to take the time this afternoon to say thank you to the bill sponsor for bringing up a perennial annoyance for school districts. In my work with the Washoe County School District, I've been able to meet a number of their superintendents over the years, as well as superintendents that Ms. Kima will talk about from across the state. And about once a month, we'll hear from somebody saying, well, gosh, can't we just do something about some of this reporting? Obviously, the districts want to operate transparently, and obviously, policymakers and parents need access to data. But as has been previously discussed, every hour spent preparing those reports is an hour that somebody could have been doing something else, whether it's a classroom teacher, an administrator, or frankly, an accountant. And we look forward to the opportunity to claim some of that time back. I would be remiss not to point out the thrill it is to see Section 4 of the legislation that actually contemplates a consistent review of the reporting requirements handed down to schools for the opportunity to allow some of the topics of the moment that might be happening right now to fall off the table as new reports are assigned down to the district. So thank you for indulging me, members of the committee, and again, would love to thank the sponsor for bringing such an important piece of legislation.
Vice Chair De Silva, my name is Susan Kima. I am the Executive Director for the Nevada Association of School Superintendents. We'd like to go on record that we support AB 389. And NAS is an advocate for creating efficiencies, supports the reduction in reporting, and values the research of the Gwynn Center and the work that Assemblymember Torres Fawcett has put together for this bill. As a person who has retired from a school district and has been involved in much of this reporting over the years, if you note, Peter Zutz mentioned this was a 2015 purchase. Think about the technology that we have at our fingertips today, the transparency that we could afford our families, and reducing the amount of paperwork, busy work, submissions, so that we can be in the classrooms. So with that, we want to say we support AB 389. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Vice Chair and members of the committee. I am Sarah Adler with Silver State Government Relations. It's very fun to follow my former boss, Associate Superintendent Kima. I was the Grants and Special Projects Director for Carson City School District for a year, and I used to set off building alarms at nights, filling out reports and spreadsheets when I would have been rather writing grants than reporting on them. But today I am representing 6 small self-managed charter schools in northern Nevada who are really eager and appreciative for this bill. They handle this reporting themselves, and they are schools with 1 or 2 administrators. They would much rather put time into data analysis than into data reporting. So they see this as a very positive move forward. There's some other good modernizations in the bill, such as removing the minimum expenditure requirement that you then have to report on. Things change quickly and dollars are always tight. So those minimum requirements and the reporting associated with it really are not aligned with the education system that we have today. So we thank the sponsor and encourage your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the committee. My name is Tom Clark. That's Tomclark. Here on behalf of the Nevada Association of School Boards, and very much in support of AB 389, and also very much appreciate the sponsor bringing it forward. Boy, the times have changed. There's efficiencies out there, and we're going to reach out and we're going to grab them. And I can tell you that the rural districts are very appreciative of this legislation, not only from the self-reporting perspective, but just to know that the state will be able to get the information that they need in a controlled manner and do the things that they need to do with that data is a good thing. So we're very much in support of it. I don't like to follow Mr. Shaver and have to agree with him very often, but I do, and I urge your support. Thank you.
Next, we'll go to Las Vegas for testimony and support. Is anybody in Las Vegas? Okay, next we'll go to the phones. AVH, is there anybody on the phones in testimony of support for AB 389?
If you would like to testify in support of Assembly Bill 389, please press star 9 now to join the queue. Vice Chair, there are no callers choosing to testify at this time.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear testimony in opposition of AB 389. We'll start here in Carson City.
Thank you, Vice Chair. My name is Brian Wallace of the Nevada State Education Association, who has been the voice of Nevada educators for 125 years for all 17 counties. NSCA does oppose AB 389. NSCA thanks the sponsor for the amendment in removing the Commission on School Funding. The Commission must remain laser focused on their task of ensuring Nevada will reach optimal funding. This can be achieved sooner rather than later by passing their plan. NSCA opposes AB 389 due to the change in class size reporting. Educational stakeholders use the current reporting method to monitor class sizes statewide. While the data may not change much from quarter to annually, it is important to our classroom educators, our members, that class size remains at the forefront of these conversations. Class size and funding is what matters to most of our members, including myself, a classroom teacher, who has had to deal with, where do I put one more student? While we understand that reporting does simplify things for districts, as my former superintendent, who did many of these reports, Mrs. Kima, pointed out, it is something our members feel extremely passionate about and want to remain right there in front of you every single moment, please. We can work on resolving these class size issues if we would only take the Commission on School Funding's solution and actually implement it. Pass the plan. Thank you.
John Eppolito, Protect Nevada Children. I think what we're really against, and if you want to move this to neutral after you hear, you're welcome to do that. I think what we're really against is the whole system. The Infinite Campus system, the SANE database. This Infinite Campus database, this is the most massive database ever created on children in human history. And that's what we're talking about. And the problem is there's a lot of data in here that's subjective and has nothing to do with education. We don't even think that we should be having all this data. I told you guys already, when I wanted to see the data that was being stored on My Kids Forever at the Department of Ed on their SANE database, we spent 3 hours in there, my wife and I, and there were a lot of mistakes. And what I mean by mistakes were there were a lot of erroneous addresses associated with My Kids. The state said, well, that's Washoe County School District. We get it from them. They got the wrong information. They sent us to Washoe County School District. Spent another hour over there. Washoe County School District had the data correct. Somehow between Washoe County Infinite Campus and the Department of Education SANE database, they associated, with my older kids, I think there were 15 or 16 erroneous addresses associated with My Kids. And all the test scores are coded so you can't see them. The problem, I think, the underlying problem is all this data is stored forever and parents never get to see it. We don't know if it's correct. We don't know. Parents have no idea. What we were told back when this database was set up by the NDE, Joe Hart reported this on Channel 4 up here, quote, the NDE will follow individual students' progress from pre-K through high school all the way to the workforce. The system will help direct students to the type of college or career-ready jobs and into a field which will allow a successful outcome for both the student and their state, end quote. That's not what's happening. We need more teachers, less PhDs. We need smaller class sizes, more monies for teachers. We don't need
Thank
to
you,
hear
Mr.
all the
Eppolito.
blah,
That's
blah,
your
blah.
that's 2 minutes. Thank you, and we'll leave that in opposition, I believe. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Now we'll move to Las Vegas for opposition testimony. Anybody in Las Vegas? Okay, next we'll move to AVH. Anybody on the phone lines in opposition to AB 389?
If you would like to testify in opposition to Assembly Bill 389, please press star 9 now to join the queue.
Barry Johnston, Las Vegas. I am opposed because it does not improve education. It expands government bureaucracy and punishes schools that are actually succeeding. This bill burdens charter and private schools with more state control, more centralized oversight, and fewer options for flexibility. The Commission on School Funding, which is nothing more than an arm of the teachers union and socialist policymakers, will have unchecked power to dictate how schools are funded and measured. Ensuring the government-run schools remain bloated and broken while non-government schools are handicapped by red tape. If you truly cared about students and were the best educated, government schools wouldn't be dead last in education year after year. Instead of freezing schools and to innovate and excel, this bill doubles down on state control, making it harder for charter schools to operate efficiently. If it removes transparency, restricts funding, and forces charter schools into the same fields, the same failed system that the crippled government-educated schools in Nevada. This is nothing more but a power grab sold under the false promise of efficiency. In reality, it's an attack on school choice, competition, and the rights of parents to determine what's best for their children. We do not need more committees, more government control, and more restrictions. We need better schools to actually educate our children. Now that President Trump closed the Department of Education about an hour ago, the funding cap for charter school kids may have a chance. Let's stop pretending that failing institutions or stop protecting failing institutions and start protecting the future of our students. And please allow me to quote Ben Franklin: "Whoever would overthrow the liberty of a nation must begin by subduing the freeness of speech." Have a good day.
Thank you, caller. AVH, is there anybody else on the lines in opposition?
Chair, there are no additional callers choosing to testify at this time.
Thank you. At this time, we'll move to neutral. Is there anybody here in Carson City who wishes to testify neutral? Okay, next we'll move to Las Vegas. Is there anybody in Las Vegas who wishes to testify in neutral on AB 389? Doesn't look like nobody's in Las Vegas. AVH, is there anybody on the lines who wishes to testify in neutral?
If you would like to testify in neutral for Assembly Bill 389, please press star 9 now to join the queue. Vice Chair, there are no callers choosing to testify at this time.
Thank you. At this time, we'll bring the bill sponsor up for closing remarks.
Thank you, Vice Chair De Silva, and thank you to members of the committee for hearing this piece of legislation today. I also would like to thank the Gwynn Center. I worked during the interim with the Gwynn Center on this specific topic for well over a year, and so it's great to see that these conversations turn into actionable legislation that can improve the quality of instruction that we deliver in our schools, reduce the burdensome reporting requirements that our administrators and school districts face, and in the long run, improve the state of and quality of education here in the state of Nevada. Thank you so much. I urge your support of AB 389.
Thank you. I will now close the hearing on AB 389. 1 minute recess.
The hardest working committee in the Nevada State Legislature, the Assembly Committee on Education, will reconvene. At this time, we'll go ahead and open the hearing on AB 328. Please begin when you're ready.
Greetings, Chair Torres Fawcett and committee members. I am Assemblymember Ruben De Silva, representing District 28 in East and North Las Vegas. And today I will be presenting Assembly Bill 328, which will seek to establish a Commission on Racial Equity and Social Justice housed within NSHE. This bill will task the Nevada system of higher education to assemble a curriculum of scholars and create a research commission to analyze the economic, political, social, and historical impacts of slavery, Jim Crow, de jure and de facto race policies and practices, and other lingering effects of enslavement, Jim Crow, and other forms of discrimination faced by enslaved Africans, African freedmen, and the descendants of enslaved African people in Nevada. The commission shall examine the economic legacy of slavery and Jim Crow in this state, as well as the prior organized and unorganized territories that today constitute the modern state boundaries of Nevada. It is my hope that the proposed commission will particularly examine the application of Jim Crow and Jim Crow-related policies and other discriminatory habits and practices, such as redlining, segregated school systems, segregated public goods and spaces, segregated casinos, unequal access to opportunity, discriminatory neglect, etc., that led to significant social and economic disparities for formerly enslaved Africans and the descendants of enslaved Africans in Nevada, a state that would go on to earn the moniker Mississippi of the West. The commission shall draw on the resources and knowledge of historians and other scholars from Nevada as well as across the nation, and interested parties shall also be invited to participate. The commission shall perform the following duties. 1. The commission shall present findings to the legislature after studying and examining the institution of slavery in territory pertaining to the modern state boundaries of Nevada. The commission will also study the effects of the de jure and de facto discrimination against freed African slaves and their descendants from the end of the Civil War to the present, including economic, political, educational, and social discrimination. The commission will also present findings on the lingering negative effects of the institution of slavery on Nevada today. The commission will recommend appropriate ways to educate the Nevada public on the commission's findings to advance racial healing, understanding, and transformation. The commission will recommend how, in consideration of the commission's findings, any form of rehabilitation, restitution, or reparation to descendants of formerly enslaved Africans is warranted and what the form and scope of those measures should be. NSHE shall organize the commission by August 2025. The commission shall submit a written report and present in person its findings and recommendations to the Nevada Legislature during the 84th legislative session. The commission shall terminate at the conclusion of the 84th legislative session. At this time, I would like to turn things over to Minister Stretch Sanders, who is the president of the Nevada Coalition on Reparations and also the president of the Stretch for Change Foundation. Please, Minister Stretch.
Thank you, Assemblyman De Silva. To Chair Torres Fawcett and to the rest of the fellow Assembly persons, thank you guys for having me today. As has been said, I am Minister Stretch Sanders. I bring you greetings from Great Evergreen Missionary Baptist Church. I'm also an associate pastor, and I wholeheartedly support this bill simply because as a person of faith, I believe in being a repair of the breach. I believe that in order for us to go forward, sometimes we have to go backwards. And what this study represents is it opens up a conversation for us to look at the history of Nevada. We do understand that there was not chattel slavery in Nevada, but we do also recognize that there was certain practices that put the African American community in a negative way in terms of where we are today. And so we believe with this study, it will allow us to have an important conversation on how to move forward, how to create avenues of reconciliation, and how to push not just our community forward, but all communities forward through reconciliation and restoration. So I wholeheartedly support this effort, and I appreciate you, Senator De Silva, for having me.
Thank you, Minister Stretch. At this time, we'll have Professor Tyler Perry from the UNLV Department of Ethnic Studies and Interdisciplinary Studies. He is a professor at the institution, also one of the foremost experts on this subject matter in the Mountain West area. Professor, please. Ruben De Silva for the record, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Assemblymember De Silva, and good afternoon, distinguished Assembly members. My name is Tyler D. Perry, and in my allotted time during this hearing, I am providing expert opinion on the academic nature and merits of Bill AB 328, which seeks to establish a commission on racial equity and social justice. It is important to first note that in this hearing I am speaking in my personal capacity and not in my official capacity as a faculty member of UNLV or on behalf of the Nevada system of higher education. I have taught Black Studies at the university level for 11 years, published books, articles, given media interviews, and whatnot. And so Assemblyman Silva has sought my expertise about this bill. And so during my allotted time, I'm going to kind of go through some of the text and language of the bill and specifically focus on the claims of sections 1, 2, and 3 to help demonstrate the bill's overall goals and what the committee's work, as scholarly and academic, would be should this bill be passed. So Section 1 of the bill clearly outlines the required accolades of the 9-member committee. It emphasizes the academic requirements of each member, and they must be selected based upon expertise in areas of African American studies and reparative justice, or related disciplines, I assume. And in contrast to a similar task force in California organized a few years ago, it does not allow elected officials serving in a governing capacity to be appointed. This would ensure the practice of academic integrity that allows the sources to guide the conclusions, as expert researchers would be allowed to use their craft uninhibited. Section 1 also ensures cooperation and representation among the primary educational and political entities that represent the state, including both the primary institutions in the University of Nevada system and appointees from the offices of the governor, assembly, and senate. Collaborative work is an important dimension of academic study as co-authors and researchers combine skills to produce knowledge, and I need to emphasize this, for the public good. Section 2 comprises the bulk of the bill's proposals and objectives, which requires a bit more explanation of its academic pursuits. It is important to first note that this section describes multiple areas the committee is tasked to explore, including, as noted in subsection 1A, which I will quote, the economic, political, social, educational, and historical impacts of slavery, Jim Crow laws, de jure and de facto racial segregation, and other forms of racial discrimination in the state of Nevada, as well as the prior organized and unorganized territories that constitute a part of the current boundaries of the state, unquote. There are a few points worth mentioning here. The multiple areas referenced aligns well with the essence of Black Studies methodologies, and that scholarship within this field is inherently interdisciplinary, combining many areas of the sciences and liberal arts to address the issues of the Black past, present, and future within the United States and beyond. Black Studies departments were formed throughout the late 1960s and 1970s, including those in UNLV and UNR, to address the lack of Black Americans represented in the curriculums of institutions of higher education, specifically in areas of history and literature. Subsection 1B highlights an important area that remains understudied in the current historiography of Nevada. It mentions practices of overt racial discrimination, including racially based chattel slavery, other forms of forced labor, Jim Crow-style segregation, and redlining. Though Nevada has been a state since the 1860s, very few academic works have been dedicated to such topics and how they have impacted modern circumstances. A few academic works are worth mentioning. 50 years ago, the late Professor Elmer R. Rusco of the University of Nevada, Reno, published one of the only scholarly studies of Black people in 19th century Nevada in his work titled Good Time Coming. Scholars like Trish Guerin, Annalise Orlick, Ernest Bracey, and Robert Mackey have produced books on different aspects of Black Las Vegas and the ways that African Americans resisted and overcame racial discrimination. Many similarly published works have greatly expanded our knowledge of the Black experience in Nevada, including all the complexities and nuances of this state's history, but collectively these works have only scratched the surface. Through my own research into the history of Black activism and community resistance in Southern Nevada, there remains a great deal of material that has not been explored. Such works include theses and doctoral dissertations by graduate students at UNR and UNLV, the vast collection of oral histories collected by researchers at both aforementioned institutions for the past 50 years, manuscript collections at the universities, and importantly, state archives right here in Carson City. Section 2 of the bill also specifies that one result of the committee's findings will be to develop, quote, methods to educate the general public of the state of Nevada of the commission's findings and recommendations. This again aligns with the academic methods of African American studies scholars who orient their work for community education, often publishing and presenting their work beyond the walls of academia. And on a final related note, Black Studies scholarship is greatly interested in how the past impacts the present and what it suggests about the future. The bill's emphasis on the related effects of unfree labor and racial segregation upon present-day society within Nevada is an opportunity to explore how the legacies of discrimination impact present inequalities, even as the forms of inequality seem less overt than previous generations. Scholars often consider areas of finance, infrastructure, political representation, and access, to name a few, as indicators of inequality that are connected to the past. So to conclude, allow me to lay out a few key points connected to the proposed bill that may explain the subjects it references. First, as mentioned, Nevada has a nickname called Mississippi of the West, but I would wager that few know the extent of both how that phrase developed and the type of discrimination that Black Nevadans actually confronted in each area of the state. The Black population of Nevada began to grow most significantly during World War II and the decades after. My own scholarly research in Las Vegas shows that Sin City, so-called, mirrored many practices of the southeastern states that were committed to a mandated system of Jim Crow, and most significantly, there remains a vast archive throughout this state waiting to reveal even more about anti-Black practices in Nevada throughout the 19th, 20th, and 21st centuries. Secondly, Nevada and its two major cities are often considered unique entities that exist separately from the rest of the country due to the unique laws that granted access to items that were off limits to other countries. This study, I believe, could show that Nevada actually is very much connected to national trends that occurred throughout the 20th century that would directly have negative impacts upon African Americans. And so this study could reveal even more material for researchers in the future. And my third and final point, very quickly, is the emphasis on historical methods and interdisciplinary frameworks noted in the bill, showcasing the need for thoughtful and careful academic work on a subject of great interest to many scholars in the field and community members. Thank you for your time, and allow me to express that it has been an honor to speak in front of this distinguished assembly.
Thank you, Dr. Perry. Ruben De Silva for the record. At this time, committee, we will stand for questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, members. Any questions? Assemblymember DeLong.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for bringing the presentation in the bill forward. Interesting topic. In talking about discrimination in the state, I think some classic examples are actually Native Americans or the Chinese between the 1840s and the 1900s. But this bill is focusing really on reparation issues and just African American heritage. Why aren't we looking at the entire issue and only focusing on reparation issues?
Ruben De Silva for the record. Thank you, Assembly Member, for that question. I'll take the first shot at that question and then probably have the other presenters here also extrapolate on this. So there's we believe a unique sort of place for African Americans in the historical narrative of America. The institution of slavery was one that focused and targeted Africans as the source of that forced labor. So there is a national. Nevada is a part of a national conversation. This commission that we're hoping to institute here. That's why we want to focus specifically on African slaves, the descendants of African slaves, and the sort of repercussions, economic, social, cultural, educational, historical, so on and so forth, that have stemmed from that specific and very unique sort of historical place that African slaves held in the American narrative.
Reverend Sanders for the record. Great question, Assemblyman DeLong. So there's a quote that says, "The rising tide lifts all boats." And in some cases that can be true. But when it comes to the boat of the African American, our boat has a hole in it. And so in order for us to repair certain things, we have to be able to specifically identify the issues that are affecting that community alone. I do think there is a place, though, for solidarity. There's a place to open up a broader conversation. This study can expand the conversation that other communities have also endured. We do know that we're not the only community in Nevada that has suffered discrimination. As you stated, the Chinese, Mexican brothers and sisters, Native American brothers and sisters, so on and so forth. So that is important conversation. And I think that this study can hopefully snowball into deeper and greater conversation, because once we start to unpack this issue, then we can also probably get into the other issues as well.
I'll very quickly add, your question, Assemblymember DeLong, has kind of raised the essence of the bill, I think, in that the argument here is that African Americans, people of African descent, have endured a unique form of systematic and systemic racism solely based upon a racial categorization, meaning that it was the only group of people where enslavement was an inherited condition based upon race. Okay, so many other groups were forced into labor. Some would call it slavery, some would call it servitude, all unfree labor. People of African descent in this country and throughout the Americas were the only group that inherited the condition, solely based upon a racial categorization that was in opposition to whiteness. And so the task of this commission would be to find what is the unique circumstances within Black history that would necessitate perhaps some motion for reparative justice. And so your question is what the committee would seek to find within the bill.
Thank you, members. Additional questions? Assemblymember Flanagan, and then I'll go to Assemblymember Koenig.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the presentation. The comment that you just made was very interesting to me, and it makes me want to ask, similar studies, commission research projects done in other spaces, what type of benefit has it served to those areas? Because you mentioned the inherited consequence of slavery to African American people. How has that benefited those other communities by such studies being done in other spaces? What can we expect here?
Yes, very good question. So the only study that I think would mirror this one in any capacity is the one done in California, the California Task Force for Reparations, which made references, I think, about a year or two ago. It was organized, I think, about 4 to 5. And basically, the governor, Newsom, at the time, supported the task force, supported the study. The committee, as far as I know, made recommendations that have yet to actually be responded to by the governor. But be that as it may, the thing that I would suggest about these particular studies is that the bill notes that if some form of reparative justice is found necessary to produce, then the commission would make that recommendation. But one thing I would say is anyone in this room can actually download the final report of that California task force. It's available online. It's over 1,000 pages. It is, I would argue, the largest study of anti-Black racial discrimination within the state of California. And regardless of whether or not the task force gets the request for reparations, after reading through that particular report, I think that a study like that should be read by everybody and can be of benefit for people who are understanding the histories of racial discrimination and why the African American experience is a unique one. Because as noted, every group goes through some form of discrimination. But the one that African Americans have gone through is unique, and it suggests there are reasons why people would call for reparative justice. So in the way that I've also mentioned the push for Black studies programs in the 1960s, I think that those movements have been for the ultimate benefit of people of all walks of life, because it introduces them to a history that they otherwise might be introduced to in their own kind of personal lives.
Ruben De Silva for the record. Thank you, Assemblymember Flanagan, for that question. It's a very good one and a very an important one. There are some important differences, too, between the sort of proposed commission that we're looking to create here and establish and the one that took place in California. And it really is more of an academic, scholarly sort of focus that we're trying to imbue. This is a study now that's going to be housed within NSHE. This is also a study that's going to have the input of the university presidents, the two R1 universities, who we believe have the actual research capabilities and the scholarly depth and broadness to actually conduct an inquiry into our own past of this nature. So there are some important similarities, but there are also some very key differences between the sort of a commission and study that we are proposing that is very different from that of California. Thank you.
Assemblymember Koenig.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for Assemblymember De Silva for bringing this forward. My question has to do with the makeup of the commission. So, if we're not looking to put people with different viewpoints and different voices on there, if we put everyone who thinks the same on this group, we can already predict how it's going to turn out. Right now, we do have a Republican governor, so he potentially could appoint, someone from his own party, but that could change in 2 years and that person could get replaced. But, we're having the majority leader and the Speaker of the Assembly appointing these people. And so, to me, it looks a little bit heavy on one side and not the other, and I'm not sure how big you want to make it to include people, and I know the bigger, the more unwieldy it is. But me looking at that sees that there's a group of people that aren't maybe being represented on this commission.
Thank you, Assemblymember, for that question. And just, again, a very good question. And again, when we were creating this language, and I worked with Senator Dina Neal, we keep her in our prayers, on, drafting the initial language here. That was a concern that we had amongst the other folks that we were discussing this initial legislation. So we came to the conclusion that this needs to be not just an effort that's part and parcel of one community or just one sort of a group of folks. It needs to be Nevada-wide, Nevada-broad, Nevada strong. This commission needs to be something that looks at the state in its totality. So if you look at just to push back just a little bit on that notion, Assemblymember Koenig, if you look at the actual folks as of right now who will be making those appointments, one, yes, you have the governor. You have one appointment coming from the governor, who is a Republican at this time, who has to make the appointment this summer as soon as the legislature is concluded. That's not going to change, barring any crazy situation. So we fully believe that if this legislation is passed, it would be the current governor, who would be making that appointment. Yes, you have the Senate Majority Leader. Yes, you have the Speaker, who will be making one each. But then you have the university presidents. You have a former Republican governor who heads one of those institutions, who's responsible for making three, a full third of the commission's appointments. And then the other the other three appointments will be made by the president of UNLV, the other R1 research designated university that we have in this body, this commission. So we believe that there will be some diversity in sort of opinions, political perspectives even, and sort of thoughts, on this matter. And that we believe is a good thing. Thank you.
Follow up if I may. And that's a good answer. Thank you for that. It just, potentially in the future, you don't know how those groups are going to be made up. So without something specifically saying, that down the road, you could end up, pretty lopsided there. Thank you.
Thank you. And I know it's limited to this biennium, which I think would ease some of those concerns. But I did have a question too about the committee, because I do notice it's very rooted in the history, but I don't think it's rooted in policy, and that is an issue for me because if we're as a legislative body, we pass policy, right? The history is important and obviously can inform those policy decisions, but I do not see anything in this piece of legislation right now that requires that there are policy conversations about healthcare, about education and other things, and I would like to see that in this piece of legislation. Is there any reason why those things were not included? Because the only policy that is mentioned in here that I see is reparations, but it doesn't have anything else. There's obviously much more to what we can do to support our Black community than just reparations, right? There is other policy we can pass in this state. So is there any reason why, or is there any consideration for kind of expanding that to ensure that there is actual policy out of this?
So I can probably speak to part of that question, then hand it over to my colleagues here. Tyler D. Perry, for the record. I think I forgot that last time. That was me talking. So the thing that I will say is that one thing I tried to emphasize in my assessment of the bill is that it will be an interdisciplinary body. So the history will provide the fabric and the foundation for the policy proposals that will assuredly come from it. And if this is somewhat modeled off of the California Task Force report, one of the things they did with the structure is that the first series of chapters were largely historically based. So it was going to establish the evidence and the information to basically then propose the policies as a form of reparation for the past wrongs that have been committed. Because, and it goes to Assemblymember Koenig's question too, the commission will be tasked to ensure that they are investigating within the primary source documents that are available. That will be the only way to actually prove how discrimination has been enacted in the state of Nevada in the past as well as the present. And so I would not assume that all of the appointees will be trained historians. I would actually think that that would not be a great commission in general. And so it would require an interdisciplinary assessment and a collaborative effort from this particular body of committee members in order to provide a more holistic model for going forward.
Ruben De Silva for the record, and that's a great question, Chair. So the language is written in a certain way to promote the sort of historical inquiry that we're looking at, but we do fully believe that this is going to be an interdisciplinary commission, that it's going to look at the socioeconomic questions, from a variety of different disciplines. That's inherent, and even the conversations that we've had with the university presidents at this time and with NSHE has really resonated that sense that this is it is a study of the past, which is some would consider history, but it is through a multifaceted sort of a lens that's looking at these stories through the eyes of healthcare, through the eyes of economic policy, through the eyes of social justice, through the eyes of any and all policy issues that we debate in this legislature in the here and now. So we believe that inherently the way that it's going to come about, this will be an interdisciplinary inquiry of the past and of those injustices.
Tyler D. Perry for the record. If I could just make one quick point on that that came to mind. The bill also does note that experts from outside the committee's expertise could also be recommended and utilized for their particular skills. One example that could come to mind, for instance, is if the commission discovers that there have been housing covenants that prevented African Americans from purchasing homes in a particular area, that would be the historian's task to kind of uncover a lot of that archival material. And then there would probably be a policy proposal from somebody in another discipline that could then advocate as to what reparative justice would look like in that capacity.
Thank you for that. And, I just want to make it clear, though, that the bill as needed would need an amendment in order to make it clear that it was intends to include people from interdisciplinary, I would say, employment, right? Not just professors, because right now the piece of legislation in Section 1, Sub 2, lines like 15 and 16 states that it would only be people with the fields of African American studies and repertory justice, which would not be inclusive of interdisciplinary studies. Additionally, Section 2, A, B, and C do not make it clear that there's any goal for like a policy output. And from the conversation, it seems to me that the intent is for there to be policy recommendations that are outside of just that are outside of what is currently listed. I do. Well, as an educator, and I know, Vice Chair, you're an educator as well, I don't see education listed here. And obviously, we have a very unique history as it pertains to like education and the educational divide in Las Vegas specifically, and I'm sure in other parts of Nevada. And I think that should be added here too. So if the goal is policy, right now I only see history, and I would like to see more policy added into this piece of legislation so that there could be political output, so we could inform that. Members, are there any additional questions? I don't believe there's any at this time. Thank you so much for the presentation. At this time, I will go ahead and invite anyone wishing to testify in support of AB 328. When you're ready, please make sure you state and spell your name for the record. And if you have not already, please make sure that you have signed in with our committee assistant as well. Please begin when you're ready.
Good afternoon, Chair Torres Fawcett and committee members. My name is Brenda Zamora. For the record, that's Brenda Zamora. I am the Deputy Director at Make It Work Nevada, a reproductive justice organization. We are in strong support of this bill, specifically because It is important for us to understand the past so we can navigate through the future. And this is a great step forward for this. AB 328 will raise awareness of the purposely created economic barriers that have had long-lasting effects on multiple generations of Nevadans. This bill would create access to upward mobility. We urge you all to support this bill. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And sorry, before I go to the next testifier, I just want to remind members of the public that it is possible that some committee members may have to leave at certain times from this point forward because there are 4 p.m. committees. So please do not view this as a sign of disrespect. They'll continue to view and review this hearing as well. But I do know a couple committee members might have to leave for the 4 p.m. hearings. Thank you. Please proceed.
Good afternoon, Chair Torres Fawcett and members of the committee. My name is Kayla Maese, spelled Kaylah. Last name is Maese. I'm a civil rights analyst at the ACLU of Nevada, and I will just ditto what Ms. Zamora said, and the ACLU of Nevada supports AB 328. Thank you.
Hello, Madam Chair. For the record, my name is Kaylee Krentz, Kaylykrentz, and I'm the Social Justice Committee Chair for the Washoe Education Association, speaking in that role today and of my own personal accord. I'm here today to express my strong support for the establishment of the Commission of Racial Equity and Social Justice. As an educator trained by the National Education Association and the NEA's Black Caucus in racial and social justice, I have dedicated myself to addressing the lasting impacts of systemic oppression on our students and our communities. The community education that this bill could provide alone is critical for educators like myself, especially at a school where over 80% of students come from marginalized backgrounds. Despite the fact that I am not in the higher system of education, as a community member and an educator, this would be beneficial to myself. As the Black Student Organization facilitator at my school, I know it's surprising, but I strive to create a safe space for students of color to explore these important topics, something that should be available to all students without fear of retaliation. As an ally, I had to help build this space due to several of my fellow educators that are people of color being fearful of having this space due to potential retaliation in many areas within the state of Nevada still to this day. Every student should feel safe and empowered to educate themselves on their past, both the good and the bad. Our students of color deserve a more just community, and this commission's work will be vital in guiding real change. I urge other allies like myself to educate themselves, acknowledge the realities of the systemic oppression and racism that still exists in our state, and use their privilege to amplify marginalized voices. This commission is a necessary step toward equity and healing in Nevada. Several of my students at my school, like I mentioned, over 80% of my student population is students from marginalized communities. And if I'm catering my topics to 11% of my student population, I am not doing just by my students. Thank you.
Donald Griffin, Griffin, co-founder and director of Black Wall Street Reno. I'm going to tell you about the ripple effects that we feel. We're the only Black nonprofit that is supporting the diaper bank, food pantry, and opiates. I heard y'all speak about opiates. Y'all didn't say about the 30 boxes of Narcan that we established. It didn't get the traction to a white lady put her face on it. They don't talk about the 5 different schools that we go into and we mentorship to the Black students, teach them how to tie ties. The families that we give diapers to, they don't speak about that. But we're in an arena of white women in a nonprofit world. We can't get a foot up. God forbid we get the reparations it can do for self. God forbid that we can go into schools and talk to our students and teach them how to say kings and queens instead of always the N-word. So those reparations, yeah, we're not going to buy Cadillacs. We're going to buy buildings. Thank you.
The Reverend Paul Larson, Lutheran Engagement and Advocacy in Nevada. On behalf of Lutherans across Nevada, we stand in solidarity and support for AB 328.
Good afternoon. My name is Michael Smith, spelled the correct way, Michael, not E-A-L. As a retired high school principal, I feel great honor to be here with the educated group in this assembly. So I come to you with just to let you know that I robustly am in reference that we established this commission on racial equity and social justice. That's what it is, a commission. Now, I heard the chair mention it's not mentioning policies and educational, but I think if you look at that a little closely, you would find it mentions education. And that's the purpose of the commission, is to bring those things out so they can be discussed. So I ask that you will please support this Assembly Bill 328. And lastly, being from Mississippi, I hate to hear when people say Nevada is Mississippi of the West. I lived through the Jim Crow era. So I hate that Nevada have that dubious title as the Mississippi of the West.
Good afternoon. Excuse me. Good afternoon, Chair Torres Fawcett and Committee on Education. My name is Jolina Walker, Jollina Walker. I am a mother and community midwife and a reproductive justice advocate. In 2020, my 5-year-old daughter was in a kindergarten classroom and was subjected to a classroom teacher who played a duck, duck, goose game with a theme of slave and slave catcher, where the children were encouraged to use pretend whips and dogs to chase each other around a circle to catch the slaves. In 2019, the Nevada Legislature established the Maternal Mortality Review Committee to uncover the root of maternal mortality disparities in our state. I was appointed to that committee as a community member. I served on the MMRC for nearly 2 years before stepping down due to the committee members' lack of understanding of the systemic nature of racial discrimination in healthcare. It was only after my protest and advocacy did the committee seek out to educate themselves on systemic and racial bias in healthcare, for which I am extremely proud. The establishment of this commission is a bold step to improve understanding of Nevadans, improve Nevadans' understanding of the impact of chattel slavery on the tapestry of the story of America and Nevada. I urge you to support this commission and take a step forward for our children and our future families. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Council and Chair. Jessica Glover, Jessica Glover, Glover. As a resident of Nevada since 1986 and being biracial, I've gone through the social injustice. I know what it's like to call 911 and not receive help because of the color of my skin. I ask of you to support AB 328. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kashae Felix, Kashae, last name Felix, Felix, and I'm here representing myself for the social injustice. My granddaughter was a victim of police chasing in the state of Nevada in Reno on April 28, 2021. There is a policy in place in the law for the state of Nevada that there is no police chasing due to certain circumstances, and that law was broken. And in the midst of that, my granddaughter was killed. And still today, the police do not want to take accountability, and they continue to chase in urban areas, and that is not okay. They continue to not want to take accountability and to lie and hide evidence, and that is a part of social injustice. And so I'm here today to talk about that, to racial discrimination, and that when it happened, there was so much community support, but when it came to the police being honest and doing the right thing, they would not do that. They do not chase in other areas that are not urban areas, and I just want to speak today to there is a lot of policies that need to be taken care of, and I support the social injustice AB 328. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Ashina Burke, Asheena Burke, and today I'm in strong support of Assembly Bill 328, which seeks to establish the Commission on Racial Equity and Social Justice. As a proud African American woman and a descendant of those who endured systemic racial discrimination, I recognize the deep and lasting impact of policies like Jim Crow laws, redlining, and mass incarceration, which have deprived the Black community of economic economic, and social opportunities for generations. The disparities we see today in home ownership, education, healthcare, and wealth are not accidental. They are the direct result of laws and policies that intentionally excluded Black Americans from full participation in society. While Jim Crow laws may no longer be on the books, their legacy remains in the form of racial wealth gaps, inequitable access to education, and a justice system that continues to disappropriately harm Black communities. Reparations are not about handouts, they are about justice. Other communities have received compensation for historical injustices: Native American tribes, Japanese Americans, and the Holocaust survivors. The descendants of enslaved Africans whose ancestors built the foundation of this country without compensation deserve the same recognition and restitution. AB 328 is a crucial step towards that justice. This commission must not only study these issues, but also propose actionable solutions, including economic restitution and policy changes that uplift Black Nevadans. We cannot continue to study the problem without implementing real solutions. I urge you to pass AB 328.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Brittany Kemp. For the record, that's BRITTANYKEMP, and I am the State Organizing Manager for Make It Work Nevada, a reproductive justice policy organization. I am here to support AB 328 and establishing the Commission on Racial Equity and Social Justice. Establishing this bill is critical to the foundation of understanding not only the historical but current impacts of systemic racism that is had on African American communities, specifically in this state. This is not only a conversation about reparations in a monetary form, but also an opportunity for us in the Black community to begin to heal from the historic and current effects of institutionalized racism and oppression. I will also ditto the remarks made by my Deputy Director, Brenda Zamora, and I strongly urge the committee to support AB 238, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you. As a note, we did start this at 3:55, so we have about 10 minutes left. I do want to urge members in Las Vegas to please speak pretty quickly or just make your remarks shorter so that I can get to as many people as possible. I'm not quite sure how many people are there to testify on this bill today. Please begin when you're ready in Las Vegas.
Good afternoon, Chair and Committee. My name is Ashley Dodson. For the record, that's ASHLEYDODSON, here on the behalf of the NAACP Las Vegas, Chapter 1111. For generations, communities of color, particularly Black Nevadans, have faced systemic disparities in education, economic opportunity, and social mobility due to the historical injustice, including segregation, redlining, and other discriminatory policies. While progress has been made, many of these inequities persist, affecting access to quality education, housing, and employment. AB 328 takes a necessary and long overdue step toward acknowledging these disparities by creating a structured platform for research, discussion, and policy recommendations that will help Nevada more toward meaningful racial reconciliation and justice. And as a personal note, as a licensed master social worker and all the data, the collection, and being someone who has dealt with discriminatory issues here as a longtime Nevada and community servant, I do urge that the committee does pass AB 328. Thank you for your time.
Good afternoon, Chair Torres Fawcett and committee members. My name is Kelly Webb, KELLYWEBB. I am a mother, educator, and active member of the Las Vegas community, and I am here in support of Assembly Bill 328 as it will bring forth much needed conversation, education, and the social justice that many of us not only desire but deserve. Thank you to the co-sponsors who have taken on this bill, Assemblyman Jackson and De Silva, and Minister Stretch Sanders. I urge the committee to pass AB 328. Thank you.
Doug Unger, D-O-U-G, U-N-G-E-R, Professor, UNLV. The establishment of a Commission on Racial Equity and Social Justice under the aegis of the Board of Regents is overdue. And I believe this commission could cost much less than the fiscal note by ENCHI. The Board of Regents already has an idea council gathering data with the goal to improve access to higher education, and it could share tasks with the commission. We can count a dozen or more scholars on our faculties whose fields of study include the history, literature, sociology, and economics of racism, including generational damage and trauma caused by the crime of slavery and its legacy of oppression, for which these United States, and even our state, Nevada, a so-called free state in 1864, its first constitution written after the passage of the 13th Amendment, has never atoned, if such atonement is even possible. This commission intends to find out. The knowledge it can discover and steps toward healing it can recommend can only be more freeing. In this sad era when truth is every day erased, AB 328 is a bold and courageous step toward its preservation. Thank you.
Edwina Mosman, EMP Las Vegas. I support AB 328.
Chair Torres Fawcett, members of the committee. My name is Chandler Cook, Chandler Cooks, and I'm in full support of AB 328. We often say that history is behind us. That's what's done is done. But if we're being honest, we know that's not true. History doesn't stay in the past. It shapes our present. And if we fail to confront it, it will continue to define our future. We can't erase the injustices that have already been written into Nevada's history, but we can acknowledge them, understand them, and most importantly, commit to repairing their lasting impact. That's what AB 328 empowers us to do. This commission will give Nevada a powerful tool, not just to expose the painful truth about racial discrimination in our state, but to create pathways for healing, restitution, and progress. The disparities we see today in wealth, healthcare, education, and economic opportunity are rooted in policies and practices that excluded, exploited, and silenced entire communities for generations. I've seen it firsthand. I've lived in neighborhoods that were deliberately starved of investment, places where opportunity feels out of reach, not because the people aren't strong, driven, or determined, but because the playing field was never leveled to begin with. AB 328 is about leveling that field. But truth without action is meaningless. We cannot afford to let this commission become a report that collects dust on a shelf. The work it produces must lead to real tangible change that families can feel, businesses can see, and communities can celebrate. This is our chance to write a new chapter in Nevada's history, one where we tell the truth, address the harm, and build a stronger, more united future for every person who calls this state home. I urge this committee to support AB 328 and take a bold step toward ensuring Nevada's future is one where justice, equity, and healing are not just ideals, but reality. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Zachary Freed. I am a local filmmaker and documentarian. I support this bill because when you look at UNLV Special Collections, Vegas PBS, all these big institutions that have explored and looked at Black history in our society, it's really clear to see when you look at Fordyce, Arkansas, you look at Tulula, Louisiana. These are communities that have given us these big ripple effects during great migration periods as the Black communities have tried to move past oppression and racial discrimination and slavery. You can see these communities coming into Nevada, coming into Las Vegas, into the historic West Side, Ruby Duncan being one of them, showing that when they moved here, again, the ripple effects kept occurring. You have Black residents living in tent homes and shacks. The list goes on and on. I want to address that I'm a white young male. I don't feel that this bill oppresses me in any way, and I clearly do not think it's going to oppress other white people who keep claiming that the 14th Amendment isn't going to allow them, to say that this bill's discriminatory. I think it's very clear the ACLU has made some great points on the 14th Amendment, that we need to keep pushing and striving to prioritize communities, giving them an equitable chance that we have seen in history did not happen. And I think it's good that we can analyze these groups individually, whether it's the Black community, Hispanic, etc. So we're not corralling everybody to deal with equitability in the same way. Thank you for this opportunity, and
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Mingjia Yan, Minjiayan, and I'm a general public, a resident of Southern Nevada, here to support AB 328. Since a few committee members mentioned the Chinese, as a Chinese American myself, I want to share with you a story about an old casino in Reno called New China Club. It was an inclusive club opened in 1952 by Bill Fong and catered to Asian and African American customers, becoming a hotspot due to discrimination in other casinos. In July 1959, The New China Club was the first donor that announced scholarships for a 4-year term at UNR for Black students. And in that month, the club began broadcasting a radio show with Francis Waters, NAACP Branch Entertainment Chairman. I want to use the New China Club as a story to show the solidarity among minority groups and to show that we have a broader commitment to social justice and can form alliances to strengthen collective efforts to combat racism. And I can talk about stories like how Chinese immigrants built the railroad that went to Reno and how Reno's Chinatown got burned down twice due to racial discrimination on another day. But today, I'm here to support the African American community, and the passage of this bill will unite minority groups to form a more powerful coalition to advocate for common goals. And I want to close my comment by a quote from a poetry called "Let America Be America Again" by Langston Hughes. Let America be America again, the land that never has been yet, and yet must be, the land where every man is free. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, we will go ahead and conclude support testimony. And if there was anybody on the phones, I apologize that we weren't able to get to you. We did have a ton of people both in Carson City as well as in Las Vegas. And so the people that have had to make the drive to the buildings definitely take precedence. And so we try to hear those participants first. So we will go ahead and close support. I will note that we close support at 4:16. So I'll give 31 minutes to opposition if it's necessary. I'm sorry, 21 minutes to opposition if it's necessary. My math is off. I'm an English teacher. So I will at this time invite anyone wishing to testify in opposition to AB 328. Thank you. Please begin when you're ready.
Good afternoon, Chair Torres Fawcett and members of the committee. For the record, I'm Patty Charlton, Interim Chancellor of the Nevada System of Higher Education. First, I want to start by saying that NCHE supports the concept of AB 328 and strongly values the participation of our faculty and our subject matter experts in such a commission and its study. We recognize the importance of this work and appreciate the opportunity to engage in discussions with the bill sponsor. However, under committee rules, we must oppose the bill as written only because we believe that NCHE is not the appropriate entity to administer the commission. Dr. Perry is a prime example of the expertise and the academic excellence that participation as subject matter experts in research, a legislative study administered by the LCB would be a more effective and neutral approach. NCHE institutions have recently lost some federal funding, and with an uncertain federal landscape, are at risk of losing more. We are hopeful that shifting the administrative role is a minor one and one that is a hurdle that can be overcome for this important endeavor. We appreciate the ongoing dialogue on this issue with Assemblymember De Silva and look forward to working with him and with other stakeholders to explore potential amendments that would allow us to support this effort in the future. Thank you in advance for your consideration.
Madam Chair and Committee, my name is Lynn Chapman. I'm the State Vice President of Nevada Eagle Forum. The principle of equality under the law is enshrined in the 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, specifically in the Equal Protection Clause, which states that no state shall deny any person within its jurisdiction of the equal protection of the laws. When I read this bill, I was upset as I believe this will cause bad feelings between people around the state rather than cause people to come together. Rehabilitation or restitution to descendants of forced slavery, chattel slavery, indentured servitude, etc., is what's listed in this bill. Well, I have 2 great aunts who are indentured servants. Also, I'm half Irish. In 1652 and 1659, over 50,000 Irish men, women, and children were taken from Ireland and brought to Barbados and Virginia to be slaves on the sugar plantations. Would I be considered for restitution? Of course not. This doesn't include everyone who may fall into these categories. I grew up in a little town in California called East Palo Alto. We had so many different ethnic and racial backgrounds in our town, but we all got along and we all helped each other. The Palo Alto Times newspaper even wrote several articles about Ravenswood High School. We had 70% black population in the school, so I understand about being a minority. History is important to know and teach, but let's look forward. Let's not divide people, but work to unite all people. This bill doesn't do that. It's more of a chastisement rather than bringing people together. Don't chastise. We need to change hearts. You could probably learn a lot from the Ravenswood High alumni. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair and Committee. My name is Joshua Skaggs, and I am the Legislative Director for the Nevada Republican Party, here today in opposition to AB 328. Our platform states, "We, the people of Nevada, of the Nevada Republican Party, affirm that this nation and this state were founded upon the principle that all people are created equal, that the powers of the government as outlined in the Constitution exist to protect the people's God-given right to be free and to choose their own pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness, without regard to race, gender, religion, country of origin, or sexual orientation." Section 2 of AB 328 asks the Commission to study slavery, even though we are proud that slavery has always been outlawed in Nevada from our founding. In September of 1864, the people of the territory of Nevada approved our first Constitution, and that Constitution began by stating, first, that there shall be in this state neither slavery nor involuntary servitude otherwise than in the punishment for crimes, whereof the party shall have been duly convicted. As we know, by a 60% vote in the 2024 election, Nevadans just approved the removal of the language about punishment for crimes, meaning that slavery and involuntary servitude are absolutely unconstitutional in Nevada. At the federal level, President Trump has issued executive orders in line with Nevada's longstanding views on equality and justice by eliminating DEI and social justice programs which create division rather than uniting our citizens. Because this commission is to be created within the Nevada system of higher education, we have concerns that forming this commission could cause a loss of federal funding for our universities and colleges. Section 2 of this bill references restitution recommendations. However, there has been no slavery in Nevada, and nationally there are no longer any living persons who were either slaves or who were
Thank you, sir.
slaveholders.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Your time is over, but I know you do have written remarks. Please submit them to my committee staff. Thank you. Go ahead when you're ready.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. My name is, and members of the committee, my name is Janine Hansen. I'm the state president of Nevada Families for Freedom. And I want to say how much I appreciate Assemblyman De Silva. He's always very kind to me. I believe that God loves all people equally, whatever their color is. And I think that's a very important concept for us to heal. I do not think that this commission helps us to heal. I think when the predefined outcome, which you mentioned, Madam Chair, which is on the first page. It says, in making appointments of the commission, the appointing authorities shall appoint members of the commission on the basis of their education, training, and experience in the fields of African American studies and repertory justice. I see no opportunity in that language for people of diverse points of view and even different kinds of jobs. Of course, Joshua Skaggs mentioned that in Nevada, in the ordinance of Nevada, in our Constitution, that there shall be, before our Constitution was created, it stated that there shall be, the very first thing, in this state, neither slavery nor involuntary servitude. I think it's wonderful that that was one of the very first things. And under Section 1, Article 1, Section 1, it says, all men are by nature free and equal and have certain inalienable rights, among which are those of enjoying and defending life, liberty, and acquiring and possessing property, protecting property, and pursuing and obtaining safety and happiness. I have 18 grandchildren. I remind them when they complain to me about things that that they cannot change other people. They can only change themselves. And
Thank
they
you,
need to
Miss Hanson. I apologize.
be for that.
Thank you, Miss Hanson. I appreciate it. Thank you. I know you have written remarks too. I think you do at least. Oh, okay. No problem. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. At this time, I'll invite anyone in opposition to AB 328 in Las Vegas. I do not see anyone in Las Vegas. AVH, is there anyone on the line wishing to testify in opposition to AB 328?
If you would like to testify in opposition to Assembly Bill 328, please press star 9 now to join the queue.
Hello, my name is Lorena Biasotti. I oppose AB 328. I believe reparations could lead to endless disputes and a fracturing of social cohesion. The claim for reparations leads to a moral complexity. There's been a lot of historical wrongs. For example, some African tribes sold others into slavery. Do their descendants owe reparations too? I mean, many societies globally have histories of oppression. Where do you draw the line? Assigning blame across centuries is reductive and ignores broader human history. Instead of healing racial divides, reparations create social divides and would deepen resentment among those who feel unfairly targeted. As a descendant of Mexican immigrants, I want to make it clear that I do not wish to be included in this kind of effort. America has shown me that I can achieve just as much as anyone else. I am fatigued by the constant focus on racial disparity, and I refuse to subscribe to the narrative of systemic oppression. We each have control over our own destiny, and I choose not to participate in this blame game. Thank you.
And I have a question, Ms. Biasotti. Are you calling on behalf of CCSD or in your independent?
Speaking for myself today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Please make sure you make that clear for the record each time that you speak. Next caller, please.
Hello. This bill seems to be in line with other reparations bills that are happening across the country. I'm not sure if everyone is aware, but all of these reparations bills have been used as money grabs for those chosen to be on the commission. And this has resulted in further harms and disenfranchisement of people like me who have enslaved United States ancestors. I propose changing the name of the bill to be more specific to target the actual people and their descendants who suffered slavery and redlining. As it stands, again, it's race-based, and it would need to be more specific. As some of the other people have mentioned, we have DEI and other laws that are in place that would stop the bill from going further. But if you scale it down to the people that were actually harmed, that would work. As the bill currently stands, by saying descendants of African slaves is too general and includes anyone with an ounce of African ancestry. And furthermore, these people did not suffer the harms here in the United States. So the title is a problem, and the people that is targeted is also a problem. Again, this bill could potentially cause further harms to the freedmen community. Freedmen were the people who were actually freed. Change the name to only target the freedmen community. Also, there should be no pay for committee members chosen to be on this committee. I believe it was Section 6 that talks about payment. How long is the study going to go on for? Is it in perpetuity? Is there an end date? How much are these committee members going to be paid for their services? Lastly, it was not all Asians in the United States that received repair. It was only the specific Japanese who were in internment camps. We definitely need to address the legacy of slavery, and yes, Nevada.
Ma'am, thank you for your testimony. Could you state and spell your name for the record, please?
Yes, Brandy, B-R-A-N-D-I.
And your last name?
Hairston, H-A-I-R-S-T-O-N.
Thank you so much for your testimony. If you have any additional remarks, please submit them to the committee staff. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you for your time this afternoon. My name is Catrice Saunders. I'm a longtime resident and advocate in the state of Nevada. I have been affected by the Clark County School District as being a woman of color and minority. I was choked in third grade by my teacher, Miss Rickworth. I was not given time to show my support of this bill. I've also been affected by
Thank
the
you.
cannabis
ABH,
industry.
please.
and
Thank
I
you
keep
so much
getting
for your
cut off.
support. Next caller, please. So we are not in support. We are in opposition. So at this time, if you call in, you will be indicated as opposition. So please do not call in if you're in support. I really do appreciate you all calling in for support. I know that this is a very important topic to many people. However, under the committee rules, we're doing 20 minutes of support, 20 minutes opposition, and 20 minutes neutral if it appears. And that is all. So at this time, we are in opposition of AB 328. Please go to the next caller. Thank you.
Barry Johnston, Las Vegas. I challenge another California-style divisive, misguided focus on so-called racial equity and social justice, a social media trend and virtual signaling educators looking for a handout with politicians that ignore the bigger picture. The truth is humanity has one race, the race of the human race. And yet politicians and activists push to divide us instead of unity for their own power and control. This bill claims to address racial discrimination, but it only focuses on one group, ignoring the countless others throughout history. What about the enslaved Chinese railroad workers, the Japanese thrown into internment camps, Chinese slaves, child slaves put into brutal labor? What about Native Americans that were enslaved? We're going to talk about social justice. It must include everyone, not just a group of hand-picked political agenda. This path cannot be changed. We can change the future. Instead of wasting tax dollars on another bureaucratic race commission, let's teach each other real history, the good, the bad, the truth. Let's remind people of what we want justice and need to start with social democrats presenting this bill. Democrats defended slavery. Democrats passed Jim Crow laws. Democrats founded KKK. Democrats helped Planned Parenthood, Margaret Sanger, find black women to kill their babies.
Sir,
Democrats
can you
were
stay
responsible
germane
for
to the topic
destruction
of this
Black
piece of
Wall Street.
legislation? This is not about Democrats. This is about the
This
bill.
is
So
it.
please stay on topic of the bill. Thank you.
This is about the bill. I'm explaining how you guys got here because you filibustered civil rights, the social programs that help black families. Bill Biden in '94 helped put black men in jail for no reason. You guys defunded the police. We can talk about this all day, but it comes down to what you've done, and we need to reject radical division and embrace individual liberty, because at the end of the day, we are Americans, not color-coded categories.
Good afternoon, Bob Russo for the record. I'll make it clear I oppose AB 328. In my opinion, this bill, along with DEI and social justice movements as a whole, they don't foster healing, but in my opinion, they promote division between various racial groups. I fear that this bill will also promote a victim consciousness among those labeled as minorities, and I would argue that it has primed people to be dependent on the government. Again, this bill and those like it will not promote healing, but will set people against each other. We are a nation of equality for everyone under the law and not for one group above the other. I went to a Catholic high school in the late 60s, and we had a mix of whites, black, and Latinos. We studied together, we played sports together, we got in fights together. And you know what? We all got along. We understood that as a spiritual truth, that we are all equal, all made in the image and likeness of God. So let's get back to spirituality, let's get back to religion, and we'll understand that we are all one. So again, let's oppose this bill, and I'll just mention this too, is that the last I heard, The Democrats had a 29% approval rating nationwide. People are tired of this kind of stuff that divides people. We are one people and one nation under God. So please, please oppose this bill. Thank you very much.
Chair, there are no callers choosing to testify at this time.
Thank you. At this time, we'll go ahead and go to neutral for AB 328. Is there anyone wishing to testify neutral to AB 328? I see none in Carson City nor in Las Vegas. ABH, is there anyone on the line wishing to testify neutral? So that means you do not support or oppose this piece of legislation. You're purely providing background information. Is there anyone on the line?
If you would like to testify in neutral for Assembly Bill 328, please press star 9 now to join the queue. Chair, there are no callers choosing to testify at this time.
Thank you. At this time, I'll invite the bill sponsors for any closing remarks.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you everybody for your input into this piece of legislation. Just a few closing remarks from me. First and foremost, this bill is not about cash payments. There's nowhere in the bill where you talk about giving out reparations or making restitution as of the bill itself. The bill is simply creating a commission that's going to study the issues that we talked about during the course of this hearing, and if warranted, it's on the commission to make those recommendations now for restitution. So again, I just want to clearly reiterate that this bill is not making any sort of reparations or any promises for reparations. It is simply creating a commission that will study our historical past and then make recommendations, and one of which could be, if warranted, a restitution. Another thing I do also want to address is the fact that there is no compensation as the bill is written. This is something that NC can choose to do for the folks who serve on the commission. There was also a lot of discussion about DEI. All right, this inherently is not a DEI endeavor. This has nothing to do with administration. Doesn't have nothing to do with diversifying workforce. Has nothing to do with bringing people into a organization based upon their ethnic character or their racial characters or their gender or anything like that. This is simply a study of our past, a scholarly inquiry, an academic endeavor into our own history. And these sort of endeavors are important to understand who we are as a state and what makes up the modern constituency of Nevada. And then lastly, I'll say this before I briefly turn things over to our co-sponsor here, Assemblymember Jackson, is that I too believe in a God of love. I also believe in a God of truth and reconciliation. And the idea of reconciliation is a very important one when we talk about the theological sense of what the word means. Reconcile means to repair the breach, not just forgive, but to make whole once again. And I strongly believe that a commission like this can help us bridge those divides, bridge those divisions, and make us a more united state, a more united Nevada, and a more united country. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I go to Assemblymember Jackson's closing remarks, I wanted to go to legal because I know that there was a question of constitutionality brought up in the opposition. So I just wanted to have legal on the record addressing that question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Asher Killian, Committee Counsel. So there is, under the Nevada Constitution as well as the federal Constitution, an equal protection clause. In addition, in Nevada's Constitution, but not in the federal Constitution, there is an Equal Rights Amendment in Article 1, Section 24, that generally prohibit equality of rights being prohibited on the basis of various protected categories, including race and ethnicity. The provisions of this bill generally provide for the study of certain historical issues. It would be an unreasonable or absurd result to interpret those provisions of the Nevada Constitution or the federal Constitution to require the study of all issues relating to all categories of persons on the basis of race or ethnicity. As opposed to creating a study that analyzes particular issues relating to one particular race or ethnicity that occurred historically in this state. So it's the opinion of our office that this legislation would be constitutional under both the state and federal constitutions, and that the argument to the contrary would result in an unreasonable or absurd result when interpreting the Nevada and federal constitutions.
Thank you. And Assemblymember Jackson for closing remarks.
Thank you, Chair. Jovan Jackson for the record. There's been a lot of concerns of why this bill matters now. Many have expressed that this is behind us. I know us as a state have just voted to have slavery taken out our Constitution. That was just done recently. And it wasn't a popular turnout, but it did pass. And there's still slavery in our USA Constitution. So this is at the forefront. It's not behind us. And I just want to say that this bill is important because my grandma, from rural Louisiana, she grew up on the same plantation that her parents lived on. When she moved to Las Vegas, she wasn't allowed to go to downtown Las Vegas until they integrated. And then the neighborhood that I live in is one of the first integrated neighborhoods in Las Vegas. So this is not something that's in the past. This is something at the forefront. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you. At this time, we'll go ahead and close the hearing on AB 328. Before we go on to public comment, I will let members know that we have two BDRs that are in. We are here to introduce Bill Draft Request 34757, revising provisions relating to charter schools. Your vote to introduce a BDR is not an indication of your support. It is just to get the bill printed and assigned a bill number. Do I have a motion to, Vice Chair, I'll invite you back up to vote. Vice Chair, I'll invite you back up to vote. Thank you. Do I have a motion to introduce BDR 34757? I'm sorry, can you raise your hand if you made the motion? I had the motion from Assemblymember Hunt, and I'll take the second from Assemblymember DeLong. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. This motion does carry and passes unanimously with Assemblymember Mosca and Assemblymember Flanagan, absent excused. At this time, we'll go ahead and go to the next BDR that we have to introduce, BDR 341136, which revises provisions relating to education. Do I have a motion to introduce BDR 341136?
So moved.
I have the motion from Vice Chair De Silva. Do I have a second? I have a second from Assemblymember Dahlia. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. This motion does carry and passes unanimously with Assemblymember Mosca and Assemblymember Flanagan, absent excused. Thank you, committee. These will be introduced on the floor on Monday. Before I go into public comment, since we're on the topic of BDR introductions, I do expect for this committee to need to meet to do introductions at some point on Monday. So I just want to flag it for this committee. Do not be surprised if we do have a behind the bar. An agenda will be posted that will make it clear that it's at the call of the chair, and it's so that we can do those BDR introductions for that deadline. At this time, we'll go on to the last item on the agenda, which is public comment. If you wish to testify in public comment, please make sure you state and spell your name for the record and state your affiliation, if any. Do I have anyone wishing to testify in public comment here in Carson City? I do not see anyone. Do I see anyone in Las Vegas wishing to testify in public comment? Please begin when you're ready. Thank you.
My name is Chandler Cooks, ChandlerCooks. My comments are to defend truth, to defend justice, and the undeniable reality that history doesn't disappear just because some are uncomfortable facing it. The arguments we heard reflect a dangerous narrative.
Thank you so much for your testimony, but I cannot continue the hearing on a bill that we previously heard. I do appreciate it. So if you have public comment on another issue relating to education, you may speak now. I don't see anyone else in Las Vegas. AVH, is there anyone on the line wishing to testify in public comment?
If you would like to provide public comment, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue.
Barry Johnston, Las Vegas, BERRYJOHNSTON. Today we celebrate a historic victory, the dismantling of the Department of Education and returning the power to the states. God bless the best congressman we have, Representative Thomas Massey, for presenting the bill to Congress to make the closure permanent. For decades, Washington, D.C. has used this bloated bureaucracy to push the propaganda instead of education, to enforce political ideology instead of an academic excellence like this committee. President Trump's leadership has finally put an end to the centralized indoctrination machine, cutting off its power and sending resources back to where they belong, closer to parents. But while we applaud this step forward, we must acknowledge the new challenge. There is no way our state is prepared to handle this responsibility. The state has already proven they cannot even manage their own budgets. Now imagine if these same states received an additional 1,000 or maybe even closer to 2,000 per child in direct federal funding. Without accountability, without clear restrictions, what will stop these socialists from wasting this money and social media-driven policies, activist programs, politically motivated nonsense that has nothing to do to educate our children and everything to harm them? Our children are not wards of the government. They do not belong to the state. They belong to their families, and their future must be shaped by American values, not the anti-American propaganda. Yet these failing government-run school systems continue to exploit students' struggles on their own political gain, much like a parent with Munchausen by proxy, who thrive on attention they receive from their child's suffering, never solving the problem, only prolonging it to maintain control. We urge President Trump and these committees to go even further, bypass the state bureaucracies, fund the families directly, and let the parents take back control from those who
Thank
have
you so
failed
much for
our
your
children
testimony.
for
Next
far
caller,
too
please.
long.
Your time is up. If you have written remarks, please submit them to my committee staff.
Good afternoon. CYRUSHOJJATY. I just want to let you know I tried to call in for opposition and it wouldn't let me do it. And I'm sure a lot of people have had
Thank
the same
you so
issue.
much. If you have any other
So,
comments on issues that pertain to this committee, you may testify at this time. However, we have already closed the hearing on that piece of legislation. Please proceed if you have any comments that relate to the other items in the purview of this committee.
So can I just talk about racial issues of the past? Yes or no?
No.
Okay. All right. Well, then, other than that, I think the organization needs to be done a little better. I don't know if you guys were time limited, but
Thank you. Thank you. Next caller, please.
Chair, there are no additional callers to provide public comment at this time.
Thank you. And just so members of the public know, for the previous bill, we did do 21 minutes of support and 21 minutes of opposition. So we made sure that each side had ample amount of time to provide their input, as we will continue to do in our upcoming hearings. I know that on Tuesday we will have another long day. So thank you to Assembly members on education. I know we've been working very hard. So I appreciate your diligence. I know we are the hardest working committee. And with that, this committee is adjourned.